All right, hello everybody. Welcome to the 4th anniversary episode of Dissonant Waves. We're doing something a little bit different this time. My name is Dominic. Ritz and Trix are here.
Hellos.
Hello.
And also, somebody else. We have a guest. Please introduce yourself.
Oh. Okay, I'll introduce myself. Hi, my name is Hamish. I know Ritz from the Oz Music Discord, which is another Discord that we're a part of. But also, we've been I have been mentioned on this podcast before. I'm the guy behind the Cameron X project. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
Broken Sounds Volume 1 and Volume 2.
Yep, that's me.
They are free on Bandcamp. You can get them.
Yeah. Thanks for the plug there.
But we are here because we are being opportunistic and covering the Barbenheimer hype. We are talking about both Oppenheimer and the Barbie movie. We are usually a music podcast, and being in that, we're going to also mention the soundtracks, of course. But hey, delving in the movies is fun.
I just want to point out as well, we've actually got quite a good, diverse panel here.
Yes.
For discussing movies, because we've actually now got from 1 to 2 film students with both Hamish and Dominic here. We've now got someone who's also been an extra in a film with Trix, and then we got me, who probably prefers the SpongeBob movie to the Star Wars movies, to put out the shittest takes on movies here. So pretty diverse panel, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, that depends. Hamish, what are your movie tastes?
My movie tastes are very diverse, very eclectic. Just about anything under the sun. I've just gotten up my letterbox. My top 4 currently is the Grand Budapest Hotel, Fargo, Blue Velvet, and Stop Making Sense. So it's a very broad range of things like sweet films like the Grand Budapest Hotel to more darker films like Blue Velvet. It's I'm very I'm very open to trying out just about anything with film, and I think that's a good way to approach it. I think
that's pretty fair. I'm always someone that really likes people that push boundaries, that do interesting things or do their own unique takes, right? Yeah. And and this is gonna kind of I think we'll kind of start with Barbie in a minute here, because I kind of want to segue a little bit into this, but. My dream is to always have those really strong directors take on these big franchises and do their thing, right? My dream thing is to have a Nicholas Winding Refn James Bond film. If that makes sense to you.
That would be cool, yeah. Because it's we're currently in an age of IP being every single IP under the sun being milked for being milked for its potential or whatever. And a lot of the time they've just been stale and they've just been boring. But it's if we get more directors with their own distinct flavors and styles, then I think they could have a lot more fun with it. They could be a lot better.
Oh yeah. And I think that's how you stop it from being stale, is hey, here's this guy making a James Bond movie. Here is Greta Gerwig making Barbie. Here are people with strong voices doing their thing. It's the whole Edgar Wright making Ant-Man controversy.
Yeah. I wish we got that film. That would have been fantastic.
Absolutely.
But
But they wanted their assembly line. They didn't want someone to make it their own piece of work.
But yeah, then you've got the whole what I've just been reading up on a lot is what Mattel has is planning for the future, and it's this whole Mattel cinematic universe, and it's they could not have taken the exact wrong lesson from making.
I'm going to actually interrupt you on that as well, just to point out that this isn't even the first one of these cinematic universes that has kind of been hinted at. I'm going to spoil the Transformers movie, which I actually have watched because I have an autistic brother, so of course we went to see Transformers. That fan base is just the ASD meetup, and at the end of it, they do this little nod or something to G.I. Joe, implying that there's going to be a G.I. Joe movie. So we're getting the Hasbro cinematic universe as well here.
That is going to be the best. That's going to be the best rivalry since Marvel versus DC.
I'm going to say
I want to see. I want to see Hasbro and like Mattel just battle it off, even if both
See,
like cinematic universes aren't gonna be great.
I'm just reminded of the Dark Universe. Remember that?
Oh, oh yeah,
When they had the whole
oh
Yeah.
that was
picture of
such a
everybody,
huge,
and then like
yeah, it was
here,
such a huge fuck up.
yeah. And then like Blumhouse just released a bunch of those, like basically what they ended up making those movies later on, and they were great. Like the Invisible Man and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like if they didn't
Yeah.
tie it to the universe thing and just kind of, if they had just gone in with like, hey, let's make good movies and like make them smartly, I think that would have been a lot more interesting. But it's like, no, everyone's going to announce that they have a universe. Everyone's going to announce that there's a grand plan for everything.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
just that's the state of Hollywood right now.
I mean, I'm looking at the licenses that Mattel owns here. I mean, obviously, I think the Hot Wheels one has basically already been announced, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Or they've
yeah, I
announced that
believe
it's
so.
planned.
J.J.
Yeah.
Abrams, I believe.
Fuck.
Yeah,
no.
that's who I want directing my fucking Hot Wheels film. J.J. Abrams, man. I can't wait to find out that Hot Wheels are actually aliens.
They should at least get the person who did Need for Speed so they could make a better version of that movie.
That would be good. Like when I first heard like, oh, they're making a Hot Wheels movie. Like my dream is just like a gritty car racing film, but it's literally just with like loop de loops and those orange tracks. That could be
Oh,
fun,
great.
but like,
Well, I was gonna say,
something like kind of like it feels like a little bit like Speed Racer, but I'm saying that having not seen Speed Racer before.
Speed Racer's great.
I've seen that movie, that one. The actual anime is just a lot fucking funnier because it's basically like Speed Racer's a sociopath.
Yeah.
And it has all these just funny moments in it. The movie itself was very much Americanized.
For what
I
it
bet
was,
yeah.
For what it was, I think it was probably the best that they could have worked with in the way things were. Like, it was never going to be accurate.
Don't disagree.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, give Scott Wag the Hot Wheels movie, but I'm looking at his filmography now, and I kind of changed my mind. He's doing the fourth Expendables movie.
Oh.
He's gone down that track.
Oh,
I mean, we've got Uno to be made. You know damn well it'll probably be an Uno
Now that would be a Wachowski movie to watch.
I reckon it'll probably be in the style of either Gran Turismo, which is the whole someone who keeps playing that and becomes professional at something else. But I personally hope it goes into the style of that shit Simpsons joke parodying Disney's Cars by making that Cards movie where everybody's a living card. So I personally hope it goes down that route.
Oh man, that would be that's going to be the Emoji Movie all over again if they go down that path.
I don't know if it'll be as good as the Emoji Movie.
Well, there was the classic anime Uno thing that they did where they did Uno in the style of like a Yu-Gi-Oh episode. And I think
now to make everybody just quickly, I'm looking at some of the stuff for Mattel and specifically Mattel Digital Gaming. It seems like they've had some partnerships or deals and stuff with a bunch of licenses. I know the Minecraft movie has been planned, and I don't think that's going to be Mattel. But it looks like they've had some licenses with Roblox and Fall Guys. So just keep up with the potential future of movies could look like.
Are they still making the Minecraft movie? Don't mean to like digress or anything. It's like, I've been hearing about that movie for years and nothing's happened yet.
Well, I personally believe that the only reason why life is allowed to continue existing is so that people can ask why what's happening with the Minecraft movie, because it's so cursed that life seems to somehow it just evolved to fuck up the development of the Minecraft movie. Like I think they finally got something stable going, and then COVID happened.
Yeah,
sounds about right.
Was Glenn Howerton already gone from it by that point?
I think it was Rob McElhenney was the one who was on it. I don't know if Glenn Howerton was on there as well, but they were. I can't remember.
The market is only getting more and more like prepared to have the Minecraft movie be a thing. Like we have the Tetris movie, at least the story of the making of Tetris. We had, the Blackberry movie. Of course, Gran Turismo is coming out now, and so
Yeah.
I feel like the making of Tetris is a lot more interesting, though,
Of course.
than something that
absolutely,
is just basically. I mean, one of the big blockbusters of this year was the Super Mario movie, which everyone kept trying to convince was actually a good film. It really wasn't.
Yeah,
It had Jack Black. Basically, that was
Yeah.
it.
Jack Black as Bowser is a cool idea. I like that.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Mario, Chris Pratt did not do a good Mario. Charlie Day did an alright Luigi, but still could have been better. Seth Rogen was exactly as you would expect him to be. Cranky Kong wasn't too bad though, actually. And there was a lot more than just the actors and actresses to that film. At least that's what they would have you believe, but really nothing happened in that film.
See, I've heard like people were trying to say that that movie was really good, but there was enough mixed reception that I kind of saw through it, right? But everyone's talking about the new fucking Ninja Turtles movie like it's the next coming of Christ.
Yeah.
Okay, but I feel like every Mutant Ninja Turtles movie gets claimed as the next best thing. Like I remember when they did like the live action CGI one. I think that was Michael Bay, wasn't it?
I think it was Michael Bay, yeah. But that's
Yeah, like in like
very
2007 or something. I think I was like I think I was in primary school when it came out, and you had everybody hyped up for it. And I mean, they weren't bad films, and not at least when I watched them. They're probably not so great now.
Talk about two different versions of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles films because they made one in 2014 as well.
Yes.
I think that was. Oh no, that wasn't Michael Bay. The one I was thinking about, the 2014 one, that's not Michael Bay.
And that one got a
someone else
sequel.
again. Yeah, that one got a sequel.
Yeah.
But like,
honestly, with how often they seem to reboot the TMNT films, it should basically be an equivalent to a leap year. So we go like, hey, 2004, that's a leap year. 2008, that's a leap year. 2007, that's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles year.
And it
2014, yeah. 2023, yeah. It's
pretty fair.
I think that's a great way of telling time.
I love that idea. Just yeah.
But I mean, hey,
yeah.
This is the year that IP and all this random shit just pops off, and that's what movies become.
Yeah, because we're getting like going back to like how we were talking about Blackberry a little bit. Like we've got Blackberry, we got Flaming Hot, we've got Air now. The film about making the Michael Jordan shoe.
Yes,
but it's like so many of them now. It's like this is like a new era of like commercialism in film.
It's a weird thing. I think it's not so much a new era of it, because if you look into a lot of history of film, even in just probably since the 90s, I would put it from, you will notice that there are films that are basically just advertisements. The Wizard is one of the more famous ones, but that was basically an advertisement for Super Mario Bros. 3 in North America. You had, I think it was called The Internship, which was basically an ad for Google.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
I think
it's the Internship.
Yeah, it's not a case of I think films are becoming more commercialized. I think they've just realized they don't actually have to hide it so much.
Well, I think too, with like streaming and the pandemic and all that, people tend to watch a lot of like true crime or like factual things. And so I can see it easily being a thing of like, hey, that's what studios want to like approve right now.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely was a rise to podcasts during the COVID era, except for ours. Mostly to the true crime stuff. So I would agree. I would agree with that.
So I mean, it's like, hey, let's tell a real story and like have it be a proven thing, basically, because it's like it happened. People can read it. There's no like guessing or mystery versus having a brand new script that you have to like trust will be good.
Now, since we've gone on a full tangent away from what we're actually planning, I'm going to go bring us back here with a very simple question. We've all watched this in the cinemas. None of us pirated this, to the best of my knowledge. I know my dad pirated it, so he watched it way before any of this. But with every cinema-going experience, there's one thing you have to do beforehand, and that's you get the snacks. And how bad was getting snacks for you? For all you three, because I was personally fine because I'm happy going for the cheap shit that's basically the knockoff stuff that nobody wants to buy because everyone wants to buy M&Ms. I bought well, for Barbie, I bought basically at the back of Coles. They have a bunch of vending machines of nuts and stuff, or like the self-serve and scan and weigh, scoop and weigh is what they call it. And they had cola bottles there, so I picked that up. And at Oppenheimer, I picked up popcorn. But my partner for Barbie decided she wanted the M&Ms, and I kid you not, the whole of Coles just completely stocked out of them because there was that many people going to watch Barbie.
Damn.
Incredible, yeah.
I couldn't get popcorn because for some reason my cinema doesn't take Apple Pay, and I left my wallet at home.
Oof.
So I
Jesus.
had to. I went to Target and I got some of the mini Doritos.
Yeah, I mean,
Nice.
my theater was busy for a Tuesday, but it was still pretty, quickly able to get in, get your popcorn, get your soda. I got I think I got cookie dough bites the first time around. And then after Oppenheimer, I went back for a refill and got something else instead. Can't remember what. And I saw Barbie, and it was pretty easy. I mean, it is the local movie theater multiplex that's been around for 20 some years at least. So they should have it down even with COVID being a thing.
Plus, I think Barbie would be a lot easier to kind of sit through on a dry run, I'm going to call this, without snacks or anything, or very minimal, because it is shorter
Sure.
by a lot. I didn't go for because I'm trying to diet a bit more as well. I didn't go for the bring the shit ton of soda in. I went for the get 2 bottles of water and bring them in. And I'll tell you what, that lasted Oppenheimer.
Yeah, I never drink anything when I go to a movie because it's like I just always just I might bring food and or whatever, but I've never brought a drink in because there's nothing worse than being in the last 30 minutes of a movie and having to go for a piss and having to hold it in and just
I
wait
understand that. I understand that, but how the fuck could you go the whole of Oppenheimer without having at least a sip of water?
I don't know, but I did it.
I personally need a sip and beverage for anything.
For anything,
just makes your mouth that dry.
For anything.
Yeah, I need a beverage on deck, and my body is trained enough that I once drank 64 ounces of cherry Pepsi on a road trip and did not piss for 6 hours.
Jeez.
Holy
that is the
shit.
second most American thing we've said in the last hour.
It's the first.
Well, probably the Apple Pay for the
Yeah.
popcorn part. Yeah.
The Apple Pay thing is so weird. Everyone should just get with the times. That's just the future of it.
Yeah.
It's like if you're still just using cards, what's wrong with you?
So
I
yeah,
mean,
that's the thing.
not
you gotta have options. You can't just force everyone to do the one thing.
Yeah, they weren't
exactly,
even
yeah.
accepting cash.
Oh,
Jeez.
that's weird.
Yeah, that's odd.
I think people should take all forms of payment, and as long as it's a logical thing. Don't fucking do Bitcoin, but
Yeah.
let me swipe, let me tap, let me do whatever I want on my card. Let me do Apple Pay if I want. Let me do cash if I want. More options there are, the better it is for everyone else.
Well, I was originally going to see Oppenheimer at the independent theater up the road from me, but I couldn't be fucked buying tickets at the place, so I decided I'll go online to do it, so I can just book it. And then they wanted a security thing for my card, and I was tied to a very old phone number, which is actually my mum's phone number back from when she was in control of the account, because it's basically an account from when I was a kid. But even though that, then the card I still use was one that I created recently off a separate account, so it shouldn't have even been tied to that. And then I just said fuck it and bought one to Event Cinemas. It sometimes gets a little too needlessly complicated. I get with stuff like PayPal and stuff, you can easily get fucked over if the payment doesn't go through, and then it's like, well, you've seen the movie, we can't just go ahead and say hey, nah, you got to pay us now, and I think we'll take your shit back. It's not going to be like that episode of SpongeBob where Mr. Krabs is showing all that those cartoons and stuff
Right.
that aren't supposed to be out yet, and when he refunds it, he literally reruns the dude's brain. Although that is probably the future that capitalism looks for. It does get a little annoying, and I probably would have preferred to have seen it there. I saw it on VMAX instead, but that one was the true 70 mm showing, so it might have been a bit better to watch. I mean, in the end, I'm not too focused on all those details, but it probably would have been a bit better.
I don't think I mentioned this yet, but I did see initially Oppenheimer in IMAX in the whole big screen thing, and then I saw it with my dad again the next day in the regular screen.
How many times did you watch Oppenheimer?
Twice.
Twice, man. I it's a good film. I could not have seen that twice, so it's granted I just didn't have the time.
But there was something to be said for seeing it in the big screen and having the whole IMAX experience and letting it kind of wash over you, especially like the beginning with all the like colors and sounds.
Yeah.
Well, I usually don't go to films too much anymore. It's just I'm more of a music person than I am a movie person. So usually when I do go to see films, I go to see with my partner, and we see it in gold class. So there's less people there. You get the more comfy seatings and stuff. But when we saw Barbie, we saw it in the basically the regular cinema setup, and I think it was like 5 minutes in when we realized why we kept going to gold class, and there's fuckers behind us just wouldn't stop clapping for the whole intro.
Jesus.
It's like yeah, let's do this for the. I think a Minion posting was really funny, but also it ruined movie going for a bit.
It did, yeah. I know what you mean, yeah. The thing is, like, when I saw Barbie, like, the worst thing that I noticed was that there was, like, someone, like, sitting right in front of me that was just on their phone for, like, half of the movie, just scrolling through Hinge. I'm like, no, what is wrong with you?
Why waste your money in a movie if you're just going to spend it? Like that's you can go on Hinge anytime, really. Unless you're trying to specifically date people at the Barbie movie.
Oh, this reminds me of the person I sat next to seeing Oppenheimer the first time. It was like this guy and his wife, and he was kind of miserable. He was just like looking on his phone periodically and like, checking texts and whatnot. And occasionally he'd be like, "Is that Robert Downey Jr.?" Like, dude, shut the fuck up. And like, the movie ends, the credits are rolling, and his wife is literally bawling her eyes out in the cinema. And he's like, "What's wrong?" She's like, "Oh, it's nothing." And like, he could not give less of a shit. It's like, clearly she was affected by the movie.
Never mind, chicks. That's the most American thing that's been said today.
Fair enough. I had while Barbie was starting, I had a group of young women behind me. I think they were trying to chug something, and it just out of context, hearing like, "You got to open up your throat and like just let it slide down." Fun experience.
Yeah,
I feel like there are some people who don't quite understand cinema etiquette, which is like I think when it's the previews and you're talking and settle it down, as long as you're whispering in the previews, it's fine. I actually had no.
They were pretty loud, and they were going up. And
if you're going loud at any time, it's go fuck yourself. But I don't mind if you talk to your friends during the previews in whispers. The only time I've ever really talked with somebody in a cinema was with my friend when a movie was playing, and it was during Fast and Furious, which I think it was Fast and Furious 6. It was the one, the first one after Paul Walker's death.
7.
And 7. Thank you. Sorry, film nerds. I remember that because I saw it at the Odeon at Hornsby. And we came in, and the theater was packed full of people who were coming out of Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So I think it was Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So like it was packed, and everyone left. And then by the time it was the showing of Fast and Furious, it was me, my friend, and one random old lady.
Oh.
And she was so far away from our seats and stuff like that that are whispering that I was saying during the film, basically during at no parts in which any story or establishing shots are basically the only time, were happening. And I think that is a scenario in which I think you are free to talk as long as it's whispers and it knows no one. If the movie's going on in a full film, unless it's a reactionary laugh, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
Because I saw like a few days ago, literally on Friday, I saw a movie called Deep Red, which is like Dario Argento.
Oh,
it's like one of his like 70s. It's like
Love
one of
Deep
his like
Red.
yeah, it's one of his 70s like horror films, and it's really good. But like when there was anything like major that was happening, I'd hear someone like a few rows behind me just like gasp and say like, "Oh wow." Oh,
or be the don't go in there cunt.
Yeah, the don't go in there kind of cunt, yeah. But yeah, that movie, I strongly recommend that movie, especially if you want to hear like an absolutely banging soundtrack from Goblin as you're watching people get murdered.
Oh,
it's like,
Trix and I have covered Suspiria on this show before.
Yes.
Oh,
Deep Red is the movie before Suspiria.
I believe it is, yeah. But it's just so good because it's like they've just been like you'd see a character walking down a hallway, then the music kicks in, and you're just like, oh, they're fucked.
Yeah,
and it's such a good time.
One of my last days working as a cashier, I got somebody to watch the original Suspiria.
Fuck yeah!
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Deep Red's fucking great. I can imagine people being annoying if they're trying to do all the fucking don't go in there bullshit, because like that's shit you just got to internalize.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm definitely glad I saw Oppenheimer though at VMAX, which was a bit, it's a bit more expensive, but as I said, less people in there, and I think everyone that's going in there is actually wanting to just be in the same environment and actually watch the film. Surprisingly, Hamish, I don't know how many times you've gone to an event cinema. Did you know at the fucking very front now at VMAX they have double beds?
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, they have double beds.
That's
so you can book it for one for two people, and you can basically just like sleep as you watch a movie. I'm like, it'll be comfortable, but I'm like, I'm probably actually just like if I watched a movie in VMAX with my partner in a double bed, we are both falling asleep.
Yeah,
that is just like too comfortable to watch a movie.
It's the kind of environment that would just induce that. You don't want to be falling asleep during a movie. Absolutely not. Especially not one where it's like a night screening. Absolutely not.
But to bring on into our first actual talk about a movie now after 30 minutes of cinematic and stuff like that, I think the reason why it was better to also have an audience that was shutting the fuck up was I personally believe the best parts of Oppenheimer, and keep in mind I'm somebody who very much enjoys audio. I think that's a big thing that can get me hyped and everything like that. And yet the best parts of Oppenheimer were when there were just no sound at all.
Oh yes, absolutely agree.
1,000%.
That was some very powerful stuff.
Like the best scene,
sort of dead silent. Yeah.
The best scene out of both films is the explosion test.
Oh yeah,
where it has that whole build up, and then you're just looking visually at an explosion, and it's just actually breathtaking. It was enough said without saying a fucking word.
All the hours I've spent on Fallout games for that, like just innate anxiety that like the Geiger counter ticking gave me. Like, oh man, I was like fucking rocking forward in the seat.
Yeah,
you were about to become the annoying fucker in the theater.
Don't go in there. He's gonna blow the bomb.
Yeah, that's like me with like Chernobyl, like the show Chernobyl. That Geiger counter just puts me on edge, and it's like it's such a good way to like build tension and just really put you on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, I was so full of tension right up until Josh Peck dropped the bomb.
That was
Josh
really funny
yeah,
to
that's
dropping
see.
the bomb of all people.
All people fucking Josh Peck hitting the big red button.
I think the funny part is that Josh Peck actually is pretty good in his role in the film as well.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it's,
absolutely.
it's not even out of place, but you still just can't go and look at it other than, yeah, that's Josh Peck dropping the fucking bomb.
So after the movie
was
ended,
really-
Drake.
so after the movie ended with my dad, he was like, "Who was that one guy with the dark hair? He was heavyset." I'm like, "Oh, he was heavyset. Well, Josh Peck was heavyset." He's like, "Oh, I know Josh Peck was in there, but the other guy that looks like him." I'm like, "Who are you talking about?" And he was talking about the guy that he meets on the train early on. That kind of Isadora, something like that.
Yeah, Isadora.
And they look nothing alike. And I'm like, Dad, what the fuck are you talking about?
All white people look the same.
Now, I will say I did confuse Jack Quaid and Alden Ehrenreich in their roles in the movie.
I think there were a couple times in which I confused like who was who. There were some very similar looking
Yes.
actors in it, but I kind of just gave up and just was like, you know what, I'm thinking too much. Let me just watch the film that's doing all the thinking for me.
Because Jack Quaid was the one doing the bongos as the scientist.
Yeah.
And then Alden Ehrenreich was the Robert Downey Jr.'s like assistant guy, talking him through all the shit.
I will say for Hamish, for the person who was browsing Hinge in front of you for the whole for the first half of Barbie, should have gone to Oppenheimer because that film was so much hornier.
Oh yeah,
I was
Barbie
not-
was Barbie was like good, but like Oppenheimer was crazy in how horny it was.
Yeah, my dad
like,
told me after he'd watched both of them, he said, "Watch Barbie for the story, or watch Oppenheimer for the sex."
Oh yeah, it's like I was talking with like a friend like afterwards, and it both dawned on us like, yeah, that sex scene, like, yeah, Florence Pugh is probably the first person to have a nude scene on IMAX 70mm film. That is wild.
And there are people
But, like,
arguing
yeah.
that those scenes shouldn't be there because they don't advance the story. I'm like, bitch, shut the fuck up.
Absolutely does enhance the story. Like, the affair is an essential part of the
Yes.
Oppenheimer story.
But there are
I
these
will be the
fuckers out
pervert.
there.
I'm gonna be the pervert. I don't even care if it advances the story. It was good sex scenes.
Wait, yeah, there are these
Well,
fuckers out there
it was
who
a little-
don't want to
it was a
engage
little
with any of
weird.
it.
Oh, both
It was
of
a
them
little
were
weird. No, the first one, you warned me. You warned me
Yeah.
before I saw it, and I still almost burst out laughing though when Florence Pugh makes him say, "I have become death destroyer of worlds," whilst they're having sex.
Yeah.
It is the funniest shit because I was like, they were they stopped fucking, and then it's like she went over to the book case, picked out like the fucking the Bhagavad Gita, I think that's what the book is, and I'm just like, please don't make these people lie. And I was like, oh Jesus, are they gonna do that? And it's the best. It's such a perfect moment.
You
They
basically
have to
spoiled it for
explain
me,
how
and
he
I
knows
still
the
didn't
quote.
see it.
They have to explain how he knows the quote. It's like the Solo thing, right? Like, how do you communicate all the things that Han Solo knows in the movie? You gotta show him getting the Millennium Falcon. You gotta show him doing the race.
But like, you really show him mid-fuck say, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
I don't actually mind these scenes.
Before they nut.
I was gonna quickly say I don't mind these scenes and the advancement of the story because I actually do think, despite the funniness of it, it kind of help evolve what the relationship, or like at least tell what the relationship was between the two characters.
Oh yeah,
it's done in a really surreal way, admittedly, but surprisingly for what is basically a biographical film, it's pretty fucking surreal.
Yeah, I love like the second sex scene, the one which is, I think, what's her name? Not Florence Pugh.
Emily Blunt.
Emily Blunt.
Yeah.
Emily Blunt hallucinating Florence Pugh, fucking Cillian Murphy. And in the whole courtroom. That was weird. And they
I like how
eye contact.
it builds up to it as well as like randomly on there, Cillian Murphy gets just like naked during the courtroom as well. Like he's not stripping, he's just it feels like he just randomly starts to be naked.
It's symbolic
stuff,
of, stripping back, and like really going at him personally and like laying him bare and naked and all that.
Making him vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot in a different director that would be considered almost amateurish and how like on the nose it is, but I think it works actually really well in the scene given how high the tension is pushed. It's like how they're not literally going to be naked. How do you explain that? Well, the movie does enough to be like, hey, it's a metaphor. Don't be literal about it.
Yeah, it's a pretty good way to get that metaphor across.
But people could definitely be like blunter about it. And I think, like I said, in the wrong hands, it would be like too much.
I think what's also actually I'll let you talk, Hamish. You probably got a better thing to say.
The thing is, like, I was looking, like, they're apparently like publishing the screenplay of Oppenheimer.
Sure.
And the thing is, like, I was reading about like Christopher Nolan wrote the whole thing in first person. Like, well, all the bits that are like, all of the bits that are from Oppenheimer's perspective are written in like
pretentious as fuck.
It is pretentious as fuck, but it has given me, I think, the best line I've ever seen as a scene descriptor in a screenplay, which is quite simply the words "We are fucking." You can find it on Twitter, but it's like seeing that like in a written screenplay is fucking weird, and I love it.
Well, I mean, like I can appreciate when a screenplay is non-traditional because I know like when Finding Forrester won a screenplay award, it was not written in proper format. It was written more like a novel, and like that works. You can make that work. It's fine. Like I don't think you have to be adhering to strict screenplay format, especially if you're newer at it or just you need to do something else. Doing it in first person is like real big brain shit. That's like, oh, Chris, I don't know. Yeah, I know you're going for it, but like, think about this for a second. You really need it, even though no one's gonna see it except the people working on it, to be in first person.
Yeah, it's like if anyone could pull it off and get away with doing that, it's Christopher Nolan. It just seems like he's the kind of guy that would do that and just not get like questioned for just how bizarre that is to do. Yeah.
So what I was going to talk about as well, and it's kind of what surprised me mostly about this film as well, and not really reading too much into it other than just whatever advertisements got played beforehand, is that despite this like basically being advertised as the creation of the nuclear bomb of a movie, it's mostly a courtroom drama.
Oh, absolutely.
I think a movie that would have been
drama.
People are saying that they wish that they would see it chronologically, and I think that would be so boring. I think there's a reason the structure works, is that it forces everything to be more cohesive and the feelings to project across all different timelines, so you're still feeling it, but you're feeling it all at the same time, instead of like in hour 1, you're going to feel this, in hour 2, you're going to feel this, in hour 3, you're going to feel this, because that's how long it's going to take to get from beginning to end, chronologically.
I mean, it still somewhat is a chronological film anyway. I mean, I know it's not true chronological. It's definitely not like Memento.
Even though Memento is so structured in its screenplay that I almost find fault with that. Of just like, for a story like Memento, I feel like you need to be a little more loose, a little more like kind of wavy with how the memory works and all that. Like, if you've seen The Limey, Hamish, have you seen The Limey?
I haven't, no, but I've heard of it, yeah.
It's similar to Memento, except it's Terrence Stamp, and he's like going to LA to like avenge his daughter, but it's very much kind of like when is this taking place? Is this scene kind of like later? Is this scene kind of before? It's all very loosey goosey. Like the guy's clearly kind of having some memory issue, and it feels much more organic compared to something like Memento, which is so rigid.
Note to self: never mention Memento in front of Dominic again.
But that's like that's been my like central complaint with, I think, Nolan sometimes. Like Dark Knight's great. Some of those movies are really great, but then there are other ones where it's like he's trying to do a thing and he gets so stuck on doing that thing. It's like I wish he would just
I will forever
breathe.
debate that The Dark Knight Rises was a little overrated. I think it's a good film, but I don't think it's as good as people said. That being said, though, the opening to it is fantastic. I think the opening scene is a highlight, but then I think the rest of the film gets lost in a lot of what it wanted to do. I'll forever die on this hill. And for everyone who says that this is a strong take, remember I said at the start of this recording that I find the SpongeBob movies more enjoyable than Star Wars.
And that's fine. You can like anything.
The SpongeBob movies are pretty good, though.
Yeah. Ocean Man. Fuck, we'll just cover Wayne again.
You could. But I mean, I like that they had like the mix of like black and white and color to kind of represent different points of view and things like that. I think that actually worked really well and gave a lot of visual dynamics and variety to a movie that may have seemed a bit staid otherwise, if you're focused on like the empty, or not empty, but small rooms and all that. So I like that no one had the foresight to change it up.
I think where we can also compare both of these films as well. I think they both are very visual films in the sense of the color palettes that they use. Whilst I think Oppenheimer is intentionally a lot more kind of, I will call it duller in its color palette, but that doesn't mean that it's still not vivid.
Yeah.
And then Barbie's obviously quite glossy.
And both movies...
Well, you're probably going to say the same shit. You're going to probably say the same shit. I was going to say.
No, actually, probably not.
I was going to just say, like, they both work really well. Their kind of colors and visual choices that they do to kind of representing what's on screen or what's happening. I mean, I know it's probably a bit more of a stereotype as well to say, like, oh, yeah, this one's the whole bomb film and stuff like that. So it's going to be like the old grainy old Western shit, and then Barbie's the girls movie. So it's going to be all pink and stuff like that. And it's obviously a bit of a stereotype, but I mean, that's kind of what those films were, and it worked well for both of them.
I also wanted to kind of give kudos to the casting of both, because I think both are really good at like getting those smaller roles to people you might recognize, or names that it's like, oh, there's this person, there's that person. You know, like
basically both films were a whole like, oh shit, I know that person. Oh shit, I know that person.
You know, like Josh Peck, you know, or like one of my favorite character actors in the world is James Remar, and he shows up as the War Secretary Stimson for a scene. I'm like so happy about that, you know.
I mean, I'm Josh Hartnett too. Josh Hartnett's like, oh yeah, I haven't seen him in anything in years.
Or
it's like it makes you think, like, why hasn't he got an A-list career like so many other actors of his like time have?
Tony Goldwyn is the same way.
Yeah, him too. Yeah.
Like that man.
I'm just looking at Hartnett's Wikipedia page. He does not look 45. Holy shit.
Oh, definitely not. He looks like solid 10 years younger.
I remember him.
Even that picture, which was taken 10 years ago, he looks like he's 21. Pretty good age on that man.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's some just random in both of them. I mean, I can't say that obviously every casting wasn't just picked as a whole. Like, oh yeah, we think this is really good. I will accuse the Barbie film of having some casting in there that's for the sake of fan service. I think both John Cena and Dua Lipa I'm going to accuse them of. I don't think that means that they've done bad roles. I think they've both done fine for what they've been in, which is basically cameos.
Yeah. But seeing
Oh,
John
definitely.
Cena as a mermaid Ken is fantastic.
I'm not disregarding it. I can still accuse it though.
Right, and it's like seeing Gary Oldman play President Truman. It's like, sure, okay,
Yeah.
that's Gary Oldman. We're not fooling anybody here.
So yeah, I remember seeing that Gary Oldman scene in the cinema, and he popped up, and it's like, motherfucker, how did he get in here? It's like it doesn't make sense for him just to play like another historical figure under a lot of latex and makeup. His favorite thing to do.
He just played Churchill.
That too, yeah, of course. Who can forget?
Now he's got to play his counterpart as well.
I will say, when it comes to the makeup in the costumes and stuff like that, though, the transformation of Robert Downey Jr. to Louis Strauss, I think, was actually really good.
Yes.
Like,
Oh,
I can
definitely.
understand why the person next to you was going, "Is that Robert Downey Jr.?" Because it's enough to tell who it is, but you're also like, "Is it?" Because it's just done really well. I mean, there are some films out there in which I think the costume designing is a lot better than the film itself. That film is mostly Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh God.
That film sucks, but the costume department did a really good job.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
They,
definitely, yeah.
they have a ton of photography to work with.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. But that still doesn't mean they haven't done less of a good job.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to give any other praise to Bohemian Rhapsody, Dominic. I think that film sucks.
Alex Wolff
I've-
was in Oppenheimer. Holy shit! The Naked
Yeah,
Brothers
they
band
were
member
Lewis.
himself.
It's the true Nickelodeon meetup.
Yeah.
I mean, we could have had if there was anyone who was put into a prison, they could have easily have been played by Drake Bell.
Drake Bell would never go anywhere near this movie. No one would let him.
No, yeah, I know they wanted a good film.
He's busy being in like disaster movie or whatever.
Superhero movie. I know that because I've watched that.
Yes, that's the one.
Why would you put yourself through it?
That was in year 6. Okay, if a film had some kind of sex joke in it or some kind of random a bit of swearing, you thought it was the funniest movie ever.
Why you like
That
Tism?
being said, though, even I at that age could not get through a disaster movie.
I can't get through any of like the Friedberg and Seltzer movies. Like that one, they did think epic movies. Epic movies even worse. Like they're just really shallow, terrible parodies. It's just
Yeah, I think
don't
the
know.
original Scary Movie was at least somewhat funny. It wasn't great, don't get me wrong about that, but it was at least somewhat like teenage humor, crude funny. And
It
then it
was an
just turned into
interesting
this.
idea. Like
Well,
Airplane
I mean,
before it.
Scary Movie. Yeah, well, Scary Movie was originally what Scream was supposed to be called, so at least it seemed like it was actually not just like some kind of stupid thing. But Airplane is something different, though. Airplane's an actual really fucking good satire of disaster movies.
Airplane is
Yeah.
brilliant.
Right, and Airplane kind of spearheaded a whole subgenre of comedy that kind of churned itself out of being relevant.
Exactly, yeah. Like
That is true, unfortunately.
yeah, you've got like the Police Squad show, which is like I watched that recently for the first time. Like Police Squad is just such a good parody of cop shows, and
Yeah,
that
that's the one that's
that
based
came
off
like
Naked Gun as well, isn't it?
Yes.
Naked Gun was based off that, yeah.
Oh, okay, so
Like the Police Squad came first, and it's like yeah, it got cancelled after like 6 episodes, but it's a really bloody good like heaps of like sight gags, like that kind of humor that you just associate with those guys. It's yeah, just that, but in a lot more like a digestible form. And then you have like the police gun, not police gun, the Naked Gun movies, which are just that, but just taken to a whole new level of like extreme. And they're just
I've
brilliant.
actually only seen the first Naked Gun movie, but it is fucking funny. It's also kind of weird to remember that O.J. Simpson had a pretty like major role in Naked Gun.
Oh yeah, he was an actor.
He was an actor. He was almost going to be bloody Terminator, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's like I remember the story. I don't remember who told James Cameron that we're not gonna take O.J. Simpson because we just can't believe him as a killer. It's like that just feels a bit on the nose, but that's what happened apparently.
Hey, I mean, someone's casted Ezra Miller as a superhero.
That's true. But I just cannot take that Flash movie seriously.
I think the thing anyone was going to is so laughable that we were calling it the greatest superhero movie ever before it came out.
I just love that the meme that's come from it, though, is the baby in the microwave.
Oh, yeah, that is a classic scene, yeah.
Where it's some kind of rule that apparently it's whatever's inside the microwave or something like that is not affected by his super speed, but the microwave is. And it must be the theory of relativity coming into
I mean,
coming into
we
play
can
there.
ask Oppenheimer. We'll probably tell you.
I think Oppenheimer might be. Let's see. Yes, he's been dead for nearly 60 years. Happy birthday!
Yeah, and during the movie, how many times did you just have cancer on the mind?
Basically, when the explosion happened, I'm like, so this is how they all kill themselves.
I'm just like, y'all are around radioactive shit. You don't even really understand. Cancer.
I get also that the film's mostly from his perspective, and shit, and I also understand this as to the and he talks about giving the land back to the rightful owners, in it as well, even if it is basically one sentence.
Yeah.
I do wish there would have been a bit more kind of talk about exactly like who else got affected about the stuff, because I think it's genuinely interesting just what these experiments did towards some of the US populations around there. It may not have been too important to the film, so it's not really a criticism that I'm going to level out as this whole, this is propaganda, because it's a blockbuster film. It's all propaganda anyway. But I do wish we probably could have gotten just a bit more perspectives in this film. I feel like, especially if this is supposed to kind of be, I guess it is a biography, but it's more of a historical drama as well.
Sure. Yeah.
It's not really a complaint more as it is a wish.
I mean, for a 3-hour movie, it does pack in a lot, but also doesn't, right? Like, it
Yeah.
relies on you believing that Oppenheimer regretted kind of what he did and worked to fight against it, but never really delved much into the consequences of what actually happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, it is because it's mostly in his point of view for most of the film. It talks about it, and I assume mostly with the bombings on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it's more just kind of implying that everybody knows how bad it was, which most people do. But there's like so much more that kind of happened with World War II.
Right.
That is kind of like, it's kind of a case of like, it almost feels like World War II is basically just in the background to this movie. It's just like, it's a random thing that's just happening as this movie is going on. If you get what I mean.
I feel like the focusing so hard on Los Alamos and like leaving like everything else and just focusing on their little corner of what they're doing. It's like, I think that's a really like effective thing for them to do. Like the thing is, like, I've been seeing like so many criticisms, well, not so many, but like I've been seeing quite a few criticisms about like how they don't show the actual bombing itself of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And it's just like, why would they? It's like, once the bombs left Los Alamos, then what's the point? It's like you don't
Yeah,
need to
I
split.
agree. I don't think there actually needs to be this showing of the bombings or anything. Nor do we need to see like, well, we don't need to see some random Japanese people being blown to smithereens. I don't think that evolves the plot in any way because, I mean, if it's going from the point of view anyway, Oppenheimer would have never personally seen him. Most people in America would have never seen him, and I'm going to assume most is probably close to 100%. Never saw the bombings. The only people who would probably be the pilots, and that's fine. It never really needed to be shown, but it feels like there was a lot more that happened in the war that kind of impacted the decisions that were made. Like there wasn't really much talk of Pearl Harbor. It was kind of mentioned, I believe.
I don't
But
remember if it was mentioned.
it might have not been, but that was a very driving force between what happened in between America and Japan. Was, I mean, I always had the take of, and most people who read up on World War II history should, were that the Japanese were fucking ruthless. That is, if you just look into history, they did some messed up shit. But that's not to say that Japan were the only ones who did that. World War II was full of a lot of war crimes. That, and I feel like that impacted a lot of the kind of just the atmosphere of just most countries at the time as well, specifically the one that's developing the giant bomb. So it kind of just came into a whole like Japan is the enemy now. You know, after the whole Germany surrender, which is weird. And even then, the World War II stuff with Germany being the enemy wasn't really mentioned too much either. It was mentioned, but it wasn't so much like. I feel like a lot of the World War II stuff again just kind of more happened in the background in the film. It's.
I mean, he did 1917, or yeah, that was him, right? Or maybe he did a World War II movie recently. Nolan.
Yeah, it might have been 1917 actually. Let me check. No, it wasn't 1917.
Dunkirk.
That was Dunkirk. 1917 was Sam Mendes.
Correct. You're correct. So I mean, why bother repeating all of that?
I mean, I haven't actually seen Dunkirk, so I can't really place it off that. I'm basing it just off the context of the film alone here.
Right, but when most of what we're looking at is the bomb, the rest of the war doesn't really matter.
I just gotta quickly ask, Trix, you didn't fall asleep here, did you? Or is that you blowing your nose? Trix! Trix is falling asleep. How cute. Wouldn't be an anniversary episode without her doing that. So we'll wake up Trix eventually, yeah.
But yes, I don't know what you get really out of showing the war when the bomb is really the point.
It's not about showing. It's not really about showing the war. It's kind of more about again, I'm not labeling this too much as a criticism as I am more of an observation, even if I might be saying this more of as criticism because that's just how I talk. But I do feel like there was just that there was a lot more surrounding what was causing the race for this bomb. I feel like there was more of a talk about Russia getting it first than there was about anything else, which was still kind of a major point.
Yeah.
Because obviously we go into the future now. Spoilers for Oppenheimer too. With the Cold War, which is basically the nuclear arms race. You're coming into a whole head of, we're gonna drop the bomb on you, or we're gonna drop the bomb on you. For more 5-second war wrap-ups, so just shoot me an email.
I think the nice thing about the structure of the movie in the end is seeing a specific point in the Cold War where, we were getting away from the whole communist scare, but still very much in that, but also in like seeing how people were willing to fuck each other over and go to these extreme lengths that kind of necessitated the need to be wary of conspiracy and to believe that maybe things really were not as they seemed. Like Strauss's whole plan to rid Oppenheimer of his security clearance, despite sounding like not a big deal on the face of it, it turns in this whole, basically like this Cold War like game of just move these pieces around, make this person talk to this person, and boom, you got it.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with that. Actually, I think the whole ending to this film is basically to reveal that what caused Strauss to um go into this whole, I'm trying to say what the word, I mean, legal action or whatever against Oppenheimer. It was because he thought he had intentionally turned all the scientists against him, but then the end reveals that instead what Einstein and Oppenheimer are talking about is just the end of the world and the ramifications of the bomb.
It's the one guy being so concerned about his own ego and that people were talking about him, whereas the scientists were way more focused on more important things.
Yeah, no, I've got no real, counter to that. I think that's very correct kind of analyzing of it. Hamish, you got any counters, or you're in full agreement there too?
I'm in full agreement with that too. I think, yeah, it's a very the way that it's kind of like what I was saying, the way it's structured, it doesn't make any logistical sense to kind of. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to just to kind of really delve further into what was going on during the war than what was actually happening in Los Alamos during that period.
Yeah.
I personally think that would have been a bit distracting to kind of move away from that to look at, okay, here's what's going on a more broader scale. So really, kind of looking at this one specific moment.
It's like, imagine if they spent half an hour building up soldier characters and trying to make you really care about the fight against Japan, right? Like, that would have been so wasted.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
It's like the second Hobbit movie, right? It's like, you didn't need all that. Just cut it down.
Definitely not. Definitely not. No. It's like, man. Don't mean to just digress, but yeah, man, I don't like the Hobbit movies. It's like I recently watched them, like coming out of like the Lord of the Rings, and it's like, yeah, they don't hold up as well as I remembered they did. First one's alright.
Yeah, I don't know. I the third one's interesting, right? But my point being, I when you indulge too much and you start going into like, well, we got to set up the war, we got to do this, and it's like, that will take you out of the action. That's going to take you into a whole different mindset.
We could have had an Oppenheimer Part 1 and 2.
Oh god, I'm so glad they stopped doing that, mostly except for this fucking Spider-Verse debacle.
Yeah.
Everyone loves to make a 2-part finale.
Is Trix woken up?
Trix, you woken up yet?
No, she just turned over. She turned over.
Oh man.
Trix!
How do we mute Trix?
Oh, like she
can I do it?
Legitimately asleep.
She's gone. You can change the user volume down to that.
Okay, I was gonna say I can mute her, but I'll just turn her down.
Yeah, that's probably the better way. So she comes back on.
But
she snores like my dad.
I kind of want to like get Barbie into this now a little bit.
Yeah, it's good with Barbie. Yeah,
I don't want to fully like go from one to the other because I think there's worth in comparing them as like two very different movies, but still has interesting stuff going on, right? Because Barbie is this otherwise like fantastical movie with like really elaborate sets, right? I think that's like the first thing you really kind of notice is how well done it tries to make the Barbie world look.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. They make it
Now,
look like
before we
it's
actually
a
go into
classic
Barbie,
film.
though,
Yeah.
I want to point out something as well that I think we still get Trix's view quite quickly here, with the whole more recent view of the Barbenheimer, and it goes to show just how tiring it is to watch. But it's
Yeah.
basically 6 hours of a feeder with a little bit of gap in between of waiting. This is a lot of movie to actually to divulge in. I mean, this Barbie's runtime was just under 2 hours, and Oppenheimer was 3 hours. So that's 5 hours of movie, and then you add in what is the bullshit 40 minutes of movie trailers, which are basically the same shit. I was kind of a bit confused by all the ads that we got before the start of Barbie until I realized, oh yeah, I'm a guy. I've never watched girls' films in a theater before. So of course we're going to get these. This is of course we're going to get these types of ads.
Yeah, I got an ad for bloody my big fat Greek wedding. Like they're making another one of those. And it's like,
Yeah. I only
this is not my kind of film. But then I realized, yeah, this is essentially a chick flick.
Yeah, I didn't get that in any other film that I've watched other than Barbie. I think that film only exists for people who watch Barbie.
Meanwhile, for Oppenheimer, there was a new Exorcist trailer.
Does that look good?
I didn't get an Exorcist. I got
I got
1 second. Yeah, I got 1 second poster for the new Dracula film.
I mean, The Exorcist, like the whole conceit of the Exorcist movie is that it's 50 years later and seems to be new girls being corrupted by demons, and oops, they gotta talk to a person who's dealt with this before. So they bring back Ellen Burstyn because she's been through it.
Seems like that very kind of legacy sequel kind of thing again.
Which, at least in this one, ties back to the plot of The Exorcist, because that's essentially how they got Max von Sydow in. Is like, oh, he's dealt with this before. He knows what to do.
Yeah.
But, you know, as a legacy sequel, I'm only in it because I love Ellen Burstyn. She's a great actor. She's one of my favorite actors. But that's neither here nor there.
Now, I want to get one cat out of the bag before we cover Barbie here, or as we're covering Barbie, and put on what is basically going to be the biggest complaint that I'm going to have for either of these two films, and that is that there is a plot in this film that is basically pointless a third of the way into the film.
I'm going to bet you it's really not.
Will Ferrell does a fine job as the Mattel CEO. I think he's actually surprisingly good for what is basically going to be an exaggerated character. But after it's revealed that they're not the bad guys, they're completely pointless.
Absolutely. It's a big, like, red herring to really kind of throw you off. But, like, once that's done, we don't need to see him ever again. And yet we do.
But I think that's it's well, one, it's kind of fun because it's like, well, their whole reason for being there is kind of nullified because Barbie went back to Barbie world and all that stuff, right? But I mean, I think kind of having the real world merge with Barbie world and kind of seeing those two things clash, you kind of got to see it from both sides, right? You got to see Barbie go to the real world and deal with misogyny, and you gotta see, you know, the Mattel people go to the other side and see what the fuck they wrought.
Well, the only claim I think you can have of any story that they do at the end is that they wrap up apparently the story, but I don't think they're actually that important to doing it. Like the whole wrap up is that I forget what her character's name is, so I'm just searching this up on this Gloria, I think it is. Is that she goes and does the idea for the next Barbie, which is says, "Oh, this will make millions of dollars," and it's it's almost a Deus Ex Machina. That's what I want to call it.
I mean, it's also important that like the Ruth ghost comes back, and like Barbie basically has a like meet your maker moment, talk to God for a second kind of moment, and like
Yeah, but
pondered the
she's
meaning of
more
life.
important. She's more important than the Mattel CEO.
Sure, but they're the reason that she's there.
Yeah, but it's basically a ghost. I mean, if it's all going to be Deus Ex Machina anyway, I feel like it could have just been written in any other way. It's
Sure.
not just suddenly, oh, the Mattel CEOs are here, and so now she's here.
I mean, yeah, I think you are more right the more I think about it. That maybe there was a bit of pointlessness to it, but I guess I don't know what
Like
else I
they
would do with
don't
them either.
they don't ruin it, but I mean, basically after the chase scene is done, I reckon they could probably not have known how to get back to Barbie Land, and we would have never have questioned that.
Fair.
Like they kind of just know how to get back to Barbie Land.
I assume anything Barbie knows, they would probably know too.
Potentially,
Maybe.
and I mean, if we're going to go into full too much about the whole idea of the law or how the rules work of this, I mean, it seems weird Barbie completely exists out of anyone playing with her. It's like she's the fully sentient Barbie.
Right. She got too weird, got played with too much, and is left
So
basically.
she became sentient.
Yes.
If we're going to think too much about how this all works, I think you're reading too much into the Barbie movie.
That's fair. But
Definitely, yeah.
But like I've said though, this is like a movie that I feel like, you know, in a way you would only read about it, right? You'd be like, oh man, I wish that happened. I wish Nicholas Winding Refn really did make the James Bond movie. But it happened. It's real. Mattel let Greta Gerwig make a whole script, make a whole idea, and she pitched it, she sold it, she did it.
Like, yeah, the more I think about the Barbie, like it's a very weird movie that shouldn't have worked.
Yes.
Like there was so much going against it for it to work. Like yesterday, I was reading about like apparently it was almost going to be Gal Gadot playing Barbie,
Yeah, that'd be very
and then
different.
it's like she was, and it's like the only reason why that didn't work was because of scheduling issues. That movie would have sucked with her in the lead role. It had to be Margot Robbie. But then aside from that, you've also got a script which is heavily critical of Mattel and also doesn't
Yes.
shy away from Ruth Handler's like history with the IRS, which is very like
Yes.
not very
It's
surprising,
realistic.
yeah.
But
it
it's also
doesn't
something
really,
that's very fantastical and whimsical too.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It
It's still
straddles both lines of being like, hey, we understand, you know, this is the real world. These things happen. But also, you know, Barbie floats from level to level of her house because there's no stairs.
it's a very interesting thing that they've done because they've successfully made a film that appeals to the little girls that play with Barbie dolls, but also to the older women who played with Barbie dolls in their youth. Like getting that balance between the two right was really, really fun. That's what made it such a good movie to watch.
And
Now,
the funny thing about this one as well is that it's somehow the more controversial of the two films.
Oh,
oh,
that's a huge surprise. Yeah.
unless you're in Japan, I guess.
Oh,
Well,
that
yeah,
too,
I mean Japan. Wasn't there like a whole Twitter thread about how Japan's retaliating, like Japanese citizens are retaliating on Twitter by posting 9/11 jokes?
Yes. That's
And
wonderful.
Americans are just like jokes on you. We love that shit.
Guilty.
But yeah, I mean, this has had just a lot of controversies. It started off with the first one being the 9 dash line. So just literally like 1 second basically of this film. I don't know if it's exactly 1 second, but
Yeah,
because there's this whole dispute in a bunch of I can't remember exactly what region of Asia. I want to say Southeast, but I'm probably wrong. Um, on there having a whole dispute about territory and stuff like that, and the whole 9 dash line being on that map caused it to be banned in Vietnam, which is pretty pretty fucking funny. Philippines have requested that the lines in question be blurred, according to Wikipedia on there. There's also been a lot of criticism from right-wing pundits trying to claim that this film is very much anti-men, which I feel like if you actually legitimately claim that, you haven't really watched the film, in which it seems to be very much mocking gender roles the whole way through.
Yeah, it's mocking the whole
Absolutely,
concept
yeah.
of like patriarchy and like Ken discovering that like,
How
oh, in this world people
It's
are acting
very.
like
It's
this.
also very like mocking the idea of toxic masculinity as well.
Yeah.
how
Yeah,
fucking
that's
funny
definitely
is it though that Joe Rogan agrees that this film is an anti-men?
Joe fucking. When I saw that Joe fucking Rogan thing, I was like, of all the people to be like, not of all the people to like actually disagree with what the right wing is saying, I wouldn't have expected Joe Rogan to be that guy. Especially because I think Joe Rogan's like such a big part of like encouraging toxic
Yeah.
masculinity himself.
I
It's like
don't
This
use
is
it
very
most of
also
the time of day.
this has also been banned in some Middle Eastern countries as well under the claims of this promoting LGBT, which is probably actually true. Probably does promote it. I don't actually think it was really that much though. Like, I think there was some implied homosexual moments in there, but there
definitely, yeah.
wasn't really any kind of like standout direct I'm gay moments. Like I think we're all just going to just naturally assume that Alan was gay, but it never tells you what he is.
Do
He's just
joke about
Alan.
in the they do joke about in the scene with like with Kate McKinnon, the weird Barbie, with all like the discontinued Kens. And one of
Mm.
them is Magic Earring Ken, which is a doll that was, I like to say, banned in the 90s or the 80s or whenever it was, because he had an earring hanging around his neck. And it was banned because people thought it was a cock ring. It could be misconstrued as that. So it kind of checks out, I think, that yeah, he definitely was like one of like the gay Barbie, like Barbie or Ken dolls, yeah.
Sammy as Barbie used to be very controversial as a whole kind of. Yeah, the big criticism was is that it was unrealistic beauty standards for women. It's kind of great that Barbie has now become controversial for every gender.
Oh,
Just
absolutely, yeah.
everyone. Just
I do
everyone
like
now.
that. I forgot what the daughter's name was. I do love that the daughter called Barbie a fascist. That's
Yeah,
quite.
that sounded
That
like
was
kind of
quite funny.
12-year-old arguments on the internet kind of thing. Using big words to throw around at each other and all that.
And
Yeah, it
definitely like
was.
not meaning it. Yeah.
I will say, compared to a movie that I know was kind of touted for having similar kind of response to what the expectation was of the audience, right? Like people talk about Knives Out having kind of like a thing like that. I feel like the closest you got was that one of the smaller characters in that was like a neo-Nazi who had opinions on things, right? But they didn't do a ton of like work showing all of that. It was just kind of like, yeah, that's him, blah blah blah. He has a scene, that's it. This is much more careful in setting those things up and making you actually believe them instead of just telling you.
This film's story does have one of my least favorite cliches though,
What?
which is with the daughter of the Mattel employee. I forget the names, but it becomes the whole she's the really angsty, or he's the really angsty alternative person, but when they finally get into a popular world, stuff like that, they secretly love it all. I just I hate that cliche. And maybe it's because like I do hate popular shit. I don't know. I've never been one of those ones where if you start playing we'll just say Taylor Swift in this case
Sure.
in there, that I've suddenly become a very secret fan of it. So this is just my personal hatred of that cliche when the alternative character and turns out to really secretly love, or you get easily swayed into liking the shit. Like I think it's fine to not like this shit. and they kind of were putting out that message, I guess, because that's what Margot Robbie's character in the end goes and it's like, yeah, I don't want to be in this world, and then goes into the human world. Spoilers. But it's like, yeah, I just hate that cliche.
Understandable. Like, I can understand that. I think, the more that it's stuck to things you can kind of predict, and the more it could like, oh, they're going to do all these weird things to get to the real world, blah, 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 all that stuff that you kind of can see coming in. It becomes less exciting when those things happen.
And you know what? I'm gonna bring out my inner misogynist. I think it was better when it was ruled by the Kens.
They were such fucking doofuses, though.
Jesus.
Yeah, I know, but I want to listen to Pavement with my boys.
Like,
Is that too much to ask?
Ritz and I have already talked about like how both of us are surprised that the
my girlfriend's just staring
expected
really intently at me with some eyes of "I'm going to fucking kill you," and I will get the acoustic guitar out and sing "Push" for you.
No, thank you. I'm good.
I wanna push you around. Yeah, I will.
I will.
I mean, I think some of the best jokes come from all
Dominic.
that.
I want to point out one of the biggest ironies of that whole thing, though, and it's the least relatable moment was all the male Barbies, the Kens, singing along to Matchbox 20. Because in my family, my dad never got into Matchbox 20, but my mum loved the shit out of them.
Interesting.
So for me, that was like the least relatable moment.
Yeah.
It was
that pavement, mate. That pavement moment. I was basically the second I saw Slanted and Enchanted on that, and they're talking Stephen Malkmus, and I remember I was just kind of like, I froze for a second. I'm like, oh, I recognize that album art, and then they're calling me out. I'm like, fuck.
Well, there was that. There was also the Godfather moment.
The Godfather moment was the one that got me.
Me too.
It was like, there was a little moment in there for every guy, I think, where it's like you get called out by a moment in that, and you're like, fuck, they got me. But
and
it's
they
like
were
you
real
can still
about it.
laugh at yourself in it, though. That's the key thing. It's like they didn't really shy away from that whole stereotype, but you still laugh at it. But yeah, I do love the moment of them. I think the key thing that I loved about that whole scene with when they sing "Push" together, it's like they, like I think Ken says, "Can I sing? Can I play my guitar at you?" Which is like a very weird way of phrasing serenading, but like in such a masculine way.
Right.
But it's like, really just playing into that stereotype of guy with a guitar really well.
Well, what I also think that a lot of people are really ignoring as well is just how good of a representation both of these different worlds are explaining basically, I guess more of a stereotype world, but the whole film is a stereotype. That's just what it is. Is how boys would play with action figures or stuff like this, or how girls would play with that, another stereotype, in which you have the whole stereotype for girls that their dolls will be doing these all societies and stuff like that in a very more civil way, whilst with the boys, it's more of a get the action figures out and have a nice little fucking fight with them, which is basically what happens at the end. They turn all the Kens against each other, and we get this big fight that turns into a tense number.
Yes. Oh yeah. The fucking musical number in general, fantastic.
Yeah. Just Ken is like, I was talking to a friend last week about it. It's like when they just saw it, and the key thing that I think I'm Just Ken could genuinely win Best Song at the Oscars.
Oh yes,
and the reason for that is entirely based upon you remember the song "Man or Muppet" from the Muppet movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was written by Brett McKenzie. It's like that. I think that set the gold standard. And showed that Oscar, you can make an Oscar bait song.
But the Oscar bait song is the fucking Billie Eilish song. That's the funny part.
Oh, absolutely. The real Oscar bait one's the Billie Eilish one. But I don't think they'd give the nomination to her twice.
Sure.
Especially, coming off No Time to Die a few years ago.
Yeah.
It's like that would be weird.
This one is so much better than her James Bond song.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
I actually I really like this Billie Eilish song. It's weird for me to go for that for a song that is basically a bait hit thing, and everybody's going, oh yeah, I'm gonna cry to it. But it's Billie Eilish. If you're going to act like you're not crying to her, like the inner white girl inside of you, then I don't know, listen to something else.
I want to point out real quick weird coincidences. Ludwig Göransson, the guy who scored Oppenheimer. We didn't really talk about the score much. It's pretty good. It's soaring.
Yeah.
It's cinematic. He has a Grammy for Record of the Year. Ritz, do you know what that Grammy is for?
Ludwig Göransson, Swedish, a Grammy of for Grammy of the Year. No, I'm going. I'm taking just a quick look at some of the shit here. I don't think it's any of the stuff that I'm looking at, but I'm going to mention some of the production credits that's the big ones here that's mentioned is Childish Gambino.
Yes.
So I'm going to have to say for any guess on that, it would be Awaken My Love, but I don't think that was a Grammy of the Year.
No. This is America.
It was This Is America.
No way.
Yes.
I thought you meant Album of the Year, but it's Record of the Year.
Record of the Year.
Record of the Year.
Record of the Year is just anything, isn't it?
Yes, that's where I got, because I saw This Is America on that, but I'm like, yeah, I don't think that was Record of the Year, but I forget Record of the Year. Yeah, it does that.
Yeah, we covered that a few months ago. So it's a weird full circle moment. For us, at least.
I'm just looking at the Ludwig discography, a lot of stuff. I think it's really funny that he's also produced and co-written Childish Gambino's Camp, including Bonfire. So the same person who's doing these epic scores to this big blockbuster movie about the nuclear bomb is the same person who co-wrote a song that starts with drop it like the Nasdaq, ooh, white girls doing coke up my ass crack.
Yes.
Man, it's so fucking good.
And like you have that compared to which is the honestly great kind of collaboration collection of what you want to say of songs on the Barbie soundtrack too, right? Like I am usually pretty critical of like when they just get random artists, mainstream artists, to come on and do a song for the soundtrack. But the Barbie soundtrack does feel curated and like specific enough that I'm not mad about it.
I do wish we could have gotten a bit more with the kind of big pop. We could have easily gotten some hyper pop in this.
Oh fuck yeah!
Absolutely. The closest we get is like Charlie XCX, but
yeah,
like,
closest is Charlie X. I would also argue that we get a little bit with the Ice Spice and Nicki Minaj one, because Ice Spice kind of goes a little bit into that, but she's still mostly.
But 100 Gex covering Barbie World would have been amazing.
100 Gex, 100 Gex covering Barbie World might have like half of the audience would probably have gone and said it's the greatest thing ever, and the other half would have cried in anger.
Absolutely, yeah.
So like, yeah, I would have been on the first side there.
Yeah, the Barbie thing that was all curated pretty much by Mark Ronson. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes, it was Mark Ronson and Andrew Riot.
Mark Ronson's like on a roll, like because you compare this soundtrack to his last big like curated soundtrack, which is Minions: Rise of Gru, which has no right being as good of a soundtrack album as it gets at times.
That one felt like way more reaching and way more like, oh, they got Donna Summer back. You know, it was a little more, I don't know, critical. I was more critical of it because it felt like it was reaching too far. This feels
it was very weird getting like a bunch of like getting people like Tierra Whack, St. Vincent, Caroline Polachek, and Wise Blood to do songs for a fucking Minions movie is insane. But then again, this feels like a lot more mainstream. Yeah.
Look at the credits though on what we get on the track listing on here as well, because there was some really interesting names, and I'm saying it's also Andrew Riot as well because he's doing as much work as Mark Ronson is on here. For those who don't know who Andrew Riot is, because he hasn't ever had a song that's been a hit as a solo artist, he's the singing member from Mike Snow. He did actually have a hit as with his name credited in Australia. He was on a Flume song.
Oh.
Yeah, it was Some Minds. It was never on an album. It was just a random single that Flume put out that was hit. But he's just doing as much work as Mark Ronson is. And when I saw that in the field, because I only knew Mark Ronson from the start, and was working on this, and when I saw in the credits it was Andrew Riot as well, I was like, oh shit. So that was cool. But you look at some of the other ones, I mean, the Gale song, and I don't like Gale, but that one's basically worked on by Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah,
Jesus. I think it's
let's get
because it's kind of it's a work on
what the fuck?
Because I think it interpolates a Red Hot Chili Peppers song plus because it's called Butterflies. I'm pretty sure that also interpretates a Crazy Town, which is why Crazy Town is credited there.
Yes.
That's an absolutely fucking crazy thing to be in that as well. I mean, you just look at a bunch of the other ones on there as well, and just who's actually performing on there. I mean, we have Haim on here. We got the very recently controversial Lizzo doing one of the main songs to start here, which add that to the controversy, Charlie.
It's literally the first song we hear in the whole movie, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the song that like kicks things off, really.
Yeah.
Because like, you hear it,
he's gonna be a bit sour,
and you hear it again later. Like once she starts getting like existential, and it's like it changes and it's funny.
But some of the credits here go to Janet Jackson, which is probably from an interpolation as well on here. Obviously, you got Rob Thomas because of Push on there as well. It's a pretty stacked credit list. Granted, the performing list is a lot shorter and stuff like that as well. Surprisingly, only one song on here seems to have been basically just one person, and I think Hamish will know exactly which one it is, but Dominic, which one is it?
Oh, I know it's fucking Tame Impala.
Yeah.
Yeah, good old Tame
Impala. Only one who's written and produced their own song that they're doing it, but I don't think there's any way that you're getting it to touch a Kevin Parker song.
It's mostly instrumental. It's got a little bit of vocals in it, but it's perfect for what it is.
It's just straight up Tame Impala song just happening.
Yeah. It's like, it's a perfect like travel montage song too.
Yeah.
It's like it serves the purpose in the film pretty well.
And it
also goes to show just how much Tame Impala fans have changed since Currents. It was a really good meme that was posted like a long time ago. That was Tame Impala fans prior to 2015, and it's just a bunch of fat dudes in an apartment smoking bongs. And then it's after 2015, and it's two mums drinking wine.
Yeah, he's gone the wine mum route. I love that.
But the thing is that his sound didn't really change that much.
Oh no, it's like he's gone a little bit more pop and a little less psychedelic, but it's still his own thing, and he's still like sticking. He hasn't done like a big pop star thing, like he hasn't like sold out or anything. He hasn't still done the Bond theme yet. Oh yeah, although I would admit.
Him doing a Bond theme
would be pretty sick.
Like that's my short list for sure. Tame Impala, Janelle Monáe. There's a few on there that absolutely needs to do a Bond theme. But in this soundtrack, his song is sandwiched right in between like the very best part of it, which is like the Sam Smith song and then the Ken song. That Sam Smith song also fucking goes really hard.
I don't remember that one in the film. I had to listen to that one again.
I just think the whole soundtrack is just really good at backing up what's on the screen. I mean, this is a very glossy type of film. It is a very kind of light film, I guess we'll kind of put it in that way. I mean, it's very, it's very colorful.
It's not. I don't think it's light though. It's got very disarming humor, and it's rooted in. I
don't. Sorry. I'm talking just visually.
Oh yes.
Yes. Like that. We're not getting very dark moments in there and stuff like that. When it comes into the actual themes and stuff like that, it's basically just an existential crisis. But it backs up in there. We don't have like this real kind of like joke or anything where it's like, oh look, there's everybody's happy on the screen, but they're listening to death metal. We're getting a very good backup to what's on the screen here, and I think that's the soundtrack does a really good job. Uh, as much as I hate giving Lizzo some positivity right now after all the allegations, I think Pink is really good because the kind of just change that happens, that's very subtle but it's noticeable still in the lyrics. But what the whole song is the actual same, but the lyrics change to kind of reflect that crisis that Margot Robbie's character was going through as well. I think it's a really good musical moment happens in here.
Agreed.
I said that like I had more to say.
No, like it sets up the movie really well, and it does so, audibly as well as visually, right? Because it's like you have the first part, you have then he goes into like the later dance sequence, Dance the Night Away, which is where you start getting introduced to what's really happening, and then the song Pink comes back, and it's like, we're sticking with this. We're really gonna go into the whole like Barbie's feeling things and becoming human in a way and learning to deal with all that shit. And it's like me sitting next to a family, like a mother and two young girls. I'm just like, I wonder what those girls thought of this movie. Because I was just like, this is some heavy shit to deal with.
I really hope that person in front of Hamish found a Hinge date.
Would have been great.
Because like,
yeah.
But there were jokes where it's like, like when Barbie just goes up to the guy in Malibu Beach with Ken, and she's like, I don't have a vagina. It's like, fuck. Perfect.
Well, speaking on to that, and that kind of builds up to what is probably the best ending line to a movie in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I think
closing lines so much.
Yeah. Which I actually think the ending of this movie drags on quite a lot. I think once everything's kind of resolved, except for the arc for Margot Robbie's character, which is the last thing to be resolved, I think that drags on a lot for a lot longer than it needs to. I think I know we get the Billie Eilish song around that time. I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
As well, and I think it backs up this kind of emotional moment. But I think the emotional moment's happening just for too long that it kind of start to fall out of it.
I was crying though, so yeah, I was sold either way.
I mean, fair enough, but that's just my take. But yeah, when we actually do finally get that closing line, that is just I didn't know what to expect. My dad just literally said it's got he told me as a warning it drags on, but then the final line is fucking funny, and yeah, he was right.
It's so it like more movies. We don't see a lot of movies that just have the perfect closing line. Like that is just like the perfect way to just finish it all off, like with a great laugh like that.
And it's because the movie doesn't pull punches ever.
It definitely doesn't. Yeah, that's I think its biggest strength. It doesn't really pull that many punches.
Like a lot of movies, like they think it'd be sanitized and corporatized, so you wouldn't see something as crass as that or hear something as crass as that. But no, this one just lets loose with gynecology.
Wasn't there supposed to originally be some kind of fart opera in this film?
Which I think fine, cut that out. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that if we had that last line might not have hit as well in that case.
Definitely
but
not.
I'm so fucking happy we did not have that, because when I heard about that, it was like, oh, cool, fart jokes. Yeah. I totally didn't want to laugh.
You also have one of my favorite uses of a bleep I've ever heard.
Oh yeah, it's Issa Rae's character. It's like she plays like the president in Barbie World, just dropping a motherfucker in there. It's like
it's Mattel, motherfucker.
Good moment.
Yeah, it all like yes, that's technically pulling a punch, but for what the movie is, I'm fine with that specific moment because it's surprising either way, and you know what's being said.
Mm-hmm.
But where Oppenheimer is very good at letting you think and very much about letting you kind of bask and be kind of inculcated in the wholeness of that story. Barbie almost kind of surprises you with being thoughtful and interesting and while not always maybe tying everything up with a neat bow, they complete each other in interesting ways.
I will say as well, going into the cinema for this one as well, where everyone was dressing up in pink or everybody was dressing up in some kind of way. My partner even bought you had the flower lay on your head or something, didn't you? Yeah, on there. It kind of felt like going to the Peach PRC show, in which I felt somehow underdressed. Where I just came in jeans, a shirt, and I think a flanny over that shirt. And I thought, yeah, this might be a bit too much of the cinemas. Nah, everyone was dressed up for this one.
Yeah, it's like weeks after, weeks after.
Not as bad, not as bad as the Peach PRC one, because everyone went there with wings. So that one I was completely underdressed for. I somehow didn't dress up at all, and I stood out.
Yeah. Yeah, like weeks after Barbie actually came out, I'd just be walking around Melbourne, all around the CBD, and occasionally you'd see someone dressed in full pink, and you'd know instantly what they're going to or what they've been to.
I saw in Chicago too.
Yeah,
there was an op shop in St Kilda, Prohan Way. I think it was in between those. Might have even been in Windsor. Sorry, maybe it was. And they were basically advertising Barbie there and stuff like that, and they had the cowboy outfit at the front.
Oh shit! Nice.
So yeah, there was a shit ton of these stores and stuff, basically just trying to sell as much as they could for this. They're going get rid of our 90s donated pink clothes, pay us a bit more, we'll sell it to you, and everyone wanted to do it, which honestly there's not really much negatives to that.
Yeah, I respect that. It's they saw the opportunity and they took it.
Yeah, and I think Greta is probably a big fan of kind of that really loud, gaudy, flashy kind of design. I mean, she's a fan of Matchbox 20, apparently, so anything's possible.
It's definitely a surprise. I didn't think that she would be into that kind of music now. It's
I don't think she would have put in a song that she legitimately hated into the
the climax of the movie.
Yeah, because remember, we get to see a scene once. They've recorded that probably for the whole day.
Yeah. She probably had to think about that song a lot and understand how to put it in and all that stuff. And yeah. I was thinking a lot about did either of you ever see the Cat in the Hat movie?
Unfortunately.
I haven't for a while, but yeah, last time I watched it, it was just too much energy. But yeah, go on.
I feel like this movie captures what that was trying to go for.
Oh yeah,
I think that might be the hottest take.
Bo Welch was the director. Bo Welch is a really famous set designer and really intricate sets. Not the Grinch, I don't think he did, but he did Beetlejuice and Men in Black and all that stuff, I believe. So really, sets that are really tied to the film and that really give it a lot of feel and color. And the way that Cat in the Hat movie looked was so fucking garish and so fucking fake, but doing it here in Barbie world, it made a lot more sense. It was much more of it had a purpose to it.
I want to point out as well, people will always there was going to be a generation of people who never grew up knowing about the Cat in the Hat movie or live action Dr. Seuss. They read about it but not really known about it. The Cat in the Hat was so bad that the actual estate made sure that no more live action Dr. Seuss films could ever be made. It was that bad. And I mean, basically, one of the first films that came out when I gained sentience. When I can start getting thoughts, and there's oh yeah, let's go see Cat in the Hat. And it's disgusting visually. It's someone decided that is fine, the Cat in the Hat as a character, and it is just scary.
But imagine a world in which Barbie came out at that time. It would be probably pretty similar. Like,
Well, we had a
absolutely,
shit ton
yeah.
of people. Well, it's not people will forget or anything like that, but there's going to be a lot of people who've watched this Barbie film who never grew up watching Barbie movies, including me. I didn't
I
know
never watched
exactly
them.
how. I didn't realize how much Barbie movies existed until my partner started watching them on Netflix, and I was like, okay, there's one for this. I can understand a Christmas movie, and then there's just shit ton. There is a shit ton. But their smart play was they were all animated.
Yes. But I'm just picturing all of that like awkward humor that Barbie here uses really, really well, like through a 2000s lens, right? Like imagine Michael Cera's Alan character in like a 2003 movie instead of what it is now. It'd be,
Especially with the age of Michael Cera around then.
well, yes, that's one thing,
Yeah.
sure, but that kind of character would come off way different and be probably be handled a lot worse in 2003. Where it's just kind of like he's a little creepy, but he's a little this, a little that, but he's just Alan. He's just here.
Mm.
But,
One
like,
thing as well about like noughties films, very early noughties films, they were still very much kind of conditioned to be a certain length. As
yes,
well. Like it definitely. I think we got the change for movie lengths and being socially acceptable or financially successful with Inception. I think and Avatar as well. I think those films kind of show that you can do these longer films in more different ways and still be quite financially successful. And I mean, I'm not the biggest film buff, but I remember having a teacher that kind of was, and I think it was Warner Brothers that used to say that you could always tell a story in 90 minutes or less, and that was kind of what the social conditions, I guess, for films were. And I mean, Barbie's not the longest film ever; it's just under 2 hours. But
right.
you feel like we get these films just even like that around these same times. Everything else has to be a lot more condensed. I mean, now we've also seen some other issues come with the other film lengths and stuff like that. I mean, I will kill every goddamn filmmaker that decides that every story based off a book needed to have a two-parter to finish it off. That was a huge trend for a bit. That was like, I mean, yeah, you can say what you want about Spider-Verse. I still think there's like a bit more that could have been done in that film story-wise, but that's neither here nor there. It's definitely not as bad as just every other film basically going, okay, we're going to slow things down and make them two-parters.
I think that was that must have been a direct response to Harry Potter.
Yes, absolutely.
Like everyone going ape shit for when the last two.
Because Harry Potter did it, and then Twilight did
Deathly Hallows in two parts. Then Twilight did it. Then I think Divergent tried to do it. Didn't
Hunger
work.
Games did it.
Oh, Hunger Games did, of course. I forgot the even bigger one than that, yeah.
Yeah. But that was it. It was like all the popular, I mean, we'll call them treen. I know Harry Potter's not exactly treen, but it's getting thrown in with all of them. The books basically just getting the last movie being the whole two-parter and stuff like that. I mean, now everybody's just kind of saying, yeah, we don't want more Harry Potter when it comes to the J.K. Rowling stories, because Cursed Child did not get the good reviews from what I hear.
No, that's an atrocious play.
Yeah, everybody else is now just asking for different stories and stuff like that. It's more in the Hogwarts lore, we'll call it. But it feels like, yeah. I mean, didn't Fantastic Beasts also try and do a two-parter, or could I be wrong about that? Maybe it just flopped.
Well, it was one of those. Well, it was going to. It was more of like a Hobbit situation where it was supposed to be like 3 movies, and then they're like, let's do 5.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember that. Like, I swear they must have announced pretty early on. Like, I think it must have been after the first movie. Like, let's do another 4 or 5 of these, or like a ridiculous amount. And so, just like do a trilogy first.
Let's not forget the true failure. There's one true failure we all need to remember, and that's The Last Airbender, where they thought for sure they were going to get a shit ton of movies for that one because it was based off, obviously, the successful Avatar: The Last Airbender. And it came out around the same time as Avatar did, so they couldn't call it Avatar. They had to call it The Last Airbender, and then the movie sucked. And they originally planned to make a bunch of those movies, because I'm pretty sure it literally opens with, like, book 1 or some shit. She agrees. I think she watched the film.
Interesting.
I didn't see it.
You just
know of the law.
Okay, well, there you go. She knows more about it than I do, so.
Oh.
Still snoring.
That's all my criticism was. I was just wanting to mock M. Night Shyamalan one more time.
That's fair. In the end,
Barbie. There we go. I stole for you.
In the end, it is fantastic to see someone taking a property like this and making it a huge movie that is told with their own voice and is not meant to be like just another Marvel movie where it just follows mindlessly what the company wants. And it feels like this is a Greta Gerwig movie first and a IP that's popular second. And since this is the age of this now, we need more of these.
Oh, absolutely.
We are going to get more of these, but I don't know if we're going to get more of these. Like,
that's
we're going back. Yeah, we go back into.
Yeah, people. I mean, definitely. Get it all in.
Definitely, the big phenomenon about this whole thing, though, has still been just the Barbenheimer, being like everybody's gone. Yeah, we're going to watch both of these, and I mean, cinemas have probably been absolutely thrilled about this because you got everybody going into the theater and stuff like that. But like, would you feel like this film would have as much success? No, I mean, not specifically this one, because I think this film is good and stuff like that, but in the future Mattel universe films, say they do a Barbie 2, you think it will have that same success where if another blockbuster, say, even got put against it, it wouldn't be competing, but they'll both be going like, say, yeah, I want to go see this film and this film.
If it was original enough and was seen as like a daring sequel or a daring, counterpart to this, then I see it could be.
Because I don't see people doing that with Hot Wheels. Yeah, Hot Wheels, I struggle to know. I mean, it could end up being good. Maybe we'll all eat our words, and the Mattel Cinematic Universe would be the better MCU. I mean, I've never been a big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe anyway. I watched Guardians of the Galaxy. I like that. I watched Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Didn't really like that as much as the first one. I've heard the third one's apparently better. I watched Endgame and didn't care for it. I didn't watch any of the other Avengers, so that's probably a bit of story that I'm missing out on, but I did not like it enough to even care about all that story. I mean,
you're not missing much.
I don't really have my hopes up for Deadpool 3. And
I wish I could have had hopes up for that.
Apparently, it's supposed to be written by the people who done Bob's Burgers, so maybe we can get that kind of black humor happening into it. But I came into the first Deadpool movie absolutely hyped because the only comic I read, and it's not like I'm a big comic nerd either, but the only one I read was Deadpool because it was genuinely funny. It was my type of humor, my type of story. Like I think one of the best comic stories that's ever been written is Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, which is this whole setup in which, for those who have never read it, it's fucking great. The first series, he literally just goes around and kills the Marvel characters from the Marvel Universe. He just kills them. The second one is Deadpool Illustrated, where he then kills all the historical books that inspired the characters. So like the Headless Horseman, which kills Ghost Rider. I can't remember who Moby Dick is set up for, but he kills Moby Dick. That's fucking funny. And then it ends with Deadpool Kills Deadpool, which is the belief that because no one else killed, nothing ended up with all the universes being killed. The only reason that the universe must exist is because Deadpool exists. So Deadpool has to kill all variations of Deadpool, and it becomes a war of Deadpool versus Deadpool.
That's awesome.
It fucking greatest storyline ever. So when the fucking movie was announced and Ryan Reynolds actually seemed to be getting, like, people kind of forget that Ryan Reynolds wasn't exactly in the favor he was when he was cast for Deadpool. because he wasn't in some of the best well-known movies or something like that. I mean, he was in some really shitty comedies around then, but he actually kind of turned a massive change of form going into Deadpool. There was I never watched it, but my dad absolutely praised this film. I think it was called Voices or something like that. I mean, where basically the whole plot is that Ryan Reynolds is a serial killer that basically kills he kills these people by accident and stuff like that, and he keeps their heads in the fridge. And because he's got like schizophrenia or something like that, he believes the heads are talking to him and his pets are talking to him and telling him to kill. Apparently, it's a really good fucking horror movie.
Interesting.
And that was just before Deadpool as well. So it's like that.
Oh, yeah, no, I've seen that. Yeah, I saw that. That was interesting because that was Marjane Satrapi who did Persepolis.
So I went into hype with the first Deadpool movie, and I thought it was actually pretty good. I don't think it was a fantastic film, but I think it was good. Deadpool 2, I kind of feel the same way about. Deadpool 2 is probably better than the first one, but only by so much. But the thing that I remember just completely drew me out of Deadpool and stuff like that, it was just how everyone else got so overhyped about it that it actually just burnt me out. And people forget just how big of a sudden, like, Deadpool was always big on the internet. Let's not deny that and say it was some kind of real underground bullshit. I didn't discover him before anyone else had, and he was popular for a while. But when the hype got to a point where it did, I would compare it to Guitar Hero and Rock Band and Rhythm Games, in which we just got so much of it fucked it. I bought my first Deadpool comic in a while when I was down in Melbourne, because there was a big collection of it that was on sale, because there was like a little fold on the front thing, so it wasn't mint condition, but I didn't give a fuck about that. And I was talking with the guy who owned the comic book store, and he was basically saying that they were basically doing a couple a week. That's how bad it was.
Yikes. But you're talking about Deadpool and all that, and I agree with you. I thought those movies were good, and I really liked them. However, the other movie at that time that I was also looking forward to a lot was Logan. And I think Barbie is kind of this year's Logan, in a way. And then it takes it seriously enough and anchors a real story into it, that it feels like this is something the director legitimately wanted as part of their discography or their filmography. Like, Logan is done so well, and James Mangold does a really good job at making it like dramatic and anchored, and like making you care about superheroes again. That it kind of transcends and becomes an important piece of that year, piece of that conversation, and Barbie does much the same thing. Will Barbie get more recognition for it? Perhaps. It's definitely possible.
Well, I mean, it's gotten a shit ton of recognition. This has beaten the gross sales or the gross income, whatever it's called, of Oppenheimer by nearly twice the amount. It's over $1 billion at the box office, which is pretty fucking insane.
Yeah,
definitely, yeah. Like, especially for Greta Gerwig to be like the first female director to make direct a film that's grossed more than $1 billion. That's incredible.
With no other directors helping.
With no other directors helping. That's the key thing. That is just amazing stuff.
Because there was that other movie that got with it's one of the Marvel movies that had like a co-directing team that went over $1 billion. There was like a caveat, like technically she got there first, but Greta Gerwig got there by herself.
I think what's a crazy part to also look at. I'm just looking at Wikipedia, which is a pretty updated article, and it's talking about the highest grossing films of all time, and currently 2 of the top 50 of all time are still in theaters, and that's obviously Barbie and then Super Mario Brothers.
Wild.
So wow. we're gonna get another Super Mario Bros. Super Mario Brothers is number 15, by the way. It's one of those weird things as well. When you take a look at this, it's a weird word to use to say that it's easier now, but also differences between money and blah blah blah, and just how many people go to see a theater. Was just basically saying, Titanic is the only film in this whole in the whole top 30, we'll say, or like basically the top 40 that's before 2000.
Yeah.
And then it's only Jurassic Park and Phantom Menace, which are the only other 2 films in the whole 50 that are before 2000. And then if we take a look at it, a lot of them are from 2019 and 2018.
And it's kind of bullshit too, because ticket prices have gone up so much, especially since back then, that it's kind of like a moot point. Like, it's great so many people are going to the movies, but tickets just cost more.
Yeah, there is truth to that, but number one is still Avatar.
Yes, that's fair. I don't know how both Avatar and Avatar 2 made so much money, but they did.
Yeah, I mean, well, Avatar 2 is number 3, so that's 2022, and then you're saying that other way, so... Yeah, I mean, Avatar was what is basically a really good experiment in 3D.
So it was a big 3D demo reel.
People who have been born in the last, like, people who aren't even 10 yet will go. They will not quite realize, like, they will just see movies and watch it in 3D when they do the 3D and stuff like that, if they even still do some of those, and go, wow, that's cool. They do not realize the exact boom that Avatar had. Everybody was doing the whole 3D shit. There were video games out there that were selling 3D glasses. There was a fucking Sesame Street game, I'm pretty sure, that had the 3D glasses with it. There was the 3D TVs, where they kept claiming that was going to be the future of television. Dominic, you won't know this because you're not Australian. Hamish, you might know of Talking About Your Generation, the TV show.
Yep, I remember Talking About Your Generation.
Yes,
they did a 3D episode.
Yes, they did an episode that was completely advertised for a full week, where they were bragging about how for one segment, that was it. So it was like 5 minutes that it was going to be broadcast in 3D, and you would have to wear the stereotypical red and blue 3D glasses for it. I remember it was Josh Thomas kept throwing shit at the camera. It was pretty funny. And at the end of it, Sean McAuliffe even goes, "That's the future of television," because that's what Avatar did. Everybody thought, okay, 3D is the future now. It was basically being turned from a gimmick into the future, and then that future lasted a year.
Definitely did, yeah.
I mean, we got a lot of things from it as well. TV. We got the 3DS. That was another thing that came out, and then the 3DS turned into the 2DS because no one was using the 3D. Everyone just wanted no one bought it because of the 3D. They bought it because it was an upgraded DS, and everyone wanted an upgraded DS.
Sure.
That's what it is. Avatar as a film is shit. I would die on this hill. It is absolutely beautiful visually, but the only memorable moments in there is them calling the fucking thing unobtainium, which is just dumb, and then the shittest cry that I've ever heard in a film, where she actually sounds. She sounds like she's taken her first lesson of how to cry in acting school. It's I was a kid and I almost laughed in the theater. I was about to just burst out in the theater watching Avatar in 2009, laughing at the shittest fucking cry that I've heard in a film, and it's still to this day the shittest fucking cry I've heard in a film, and I will die on this fucking hill. I can hear Trick snoring still. I think Dominic's muted, but it's so cute. Tricksy little snore.
Sorry, I was doing something real quick. There was like a big emergency vehicle thing happening. I don't really have much else to say. I feel like we've kind of covered a lot of ground with these.
Oh, absolutely.
I think the last thing we haven't covered is just all the Barbenheimer memes. Hamish has definitely been sharing a lot of them in the Oz music. The best one being just a picture of Oppenheimer that says, "I'm here to see my gynecologist."
Yes.
That's the best one. Iconic.
So good.
It's like, yeah, all the memes that have been coming from that whole thing, no matter if it's Barbie, or just Oppenheimer, or a mixture of both. It's just really been a great boom for memes. And yeah, like, now that we got the whole, like, apparently they're releasing Thought Patrol, which is like the next Saw film, and Paw Patrol. Nobody's gonna watch that shit.
So Paw Patrol, you said?
Yeah, they're doing
Yeah,
Saw and
Paw
Paw
Patrol
Patrol.
and Saw.
People are trying to make that
the
happen.
same day later in the year.
No,
So
that's
that is the most forced bullshit I've ever heard of.
Yeah, that's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Which was the one? I think it was Elemental, where they kept trying to push in the memes like that, where everybody would supposed to scream in the theater when some
Blood or whatever it was.
Yeah, it came on screen, and
that is embarrassing.
Yeah, it's like if you're encouraging people to do that shit in the theater, just fuck off.
I was very close to seeing Elemental as like a third film after Barbie, but it was way too late then.
That feels like you're just going like, yeah, I need to go see something for the sake of seeing something. Who actually goes and sees Elemental for the sake of I really want to see Elemental?
Nobody,
I think
clearly.
It's like Elemental's pretty much does Zootopia, but with elements. It's like the exact same film.
Well, at least Elemental has a lot less questionable porn.
So far.
Yeah, just you wait. That shit has already ruled 34 of them.
Oh, naturally there is, but it wasn't. There was none. It's that there is less.
So, to kind of tie it all together, I am very curious what Christopher Nolan does next. He has not announced anything, but I feel like it really could be literally anything, and I feel like this could be a big year for him to clean up at the awards ceremonies. Greta Gerwig, on the other hand, she has written the Snow White reboot for Disney.
Yeah, and apparently she's doing like Narnia.
Yes,
she's like doing, I think, for Netflix.
A couple of Narnia movies.
Is that Narnia? You said?
Yes.
Yeah, Narnia.
We're getting Narnia again.
Yes.
I think I don't know if it's like they're doing like things, the books that they haven't done, or if she's just starting it again. But like, it's going to be very interesting to see how they handle it, how she handles it.
Right. So is Snow White going to be anything like Barbie, or is Narnia going to be anything like Snow White and Barbie? I'm curious. Yeah. Or is this kind of a one-off thing because of what it is?
I think it's going to be a one-off, but it's like not unlike, like in terms of its visual style and everything. Absolutely, I think it's going to be a one-off. But I'm very curious to see where she goes from here, because now she's like a proper. I think this film has made Greta Gerwig a proper A-list director. So it's
which is scary.
It is a very scary thing, because I remember, like, I saw like 5 years ago or something, seeing like Lady Bird and Frances Ha for the first time. It's like, that is nuts that she's here.
Yeah.
Like, she's at this point in her career already.
Well, the one to compare it to at that point would be Taika Waititi.
Oh, absolutely. But I think, yeah.
The director of Snow White is someone else who has gone through this cycle, Mark Webb.
That's true.
He did 500 Days of Summer, then got catapulted into The Amazing Spider-Man.
Well, I was going to compare the person who's directed with Taika Waititi, the person who's directed the 4 movies. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. What was his first one? It was something v Shark. Was it? I think it was called. I need to check it out. It wasn't like I think his breakthrough was more Boy than it was that film anyway.
Yeah, it was Boy. Boy was.
It was Eagle versus Shark, but I don't even think it was. I think Eagle versus Shark was his first feature. But Boy is such a completely different fucking type of film.
Yeah, it's I personally think with Taika Waititi, like, his best films are the ones that he made before he left New Zealand.
I've heard that.
It's like the newer ones especially like I think I've probably said this before to so many people, but Thor: Love and Thunder has got such coke energy, like cocaine. It was just, he must have been on coke when he made that.
Probably.
Like aside from that, like you've got Boy, Hunt for the Wilder People, especially What We Do in the Shadows.
What We Do in the Shadows is like I'm granted I'm not that person who's seen every film ever or like that, but no, that's such a fucking great film. Holy shit!
Yeah,
it's
the
just
thing is,
actually funny. The whole it's basically just black humor the whole time.
the thing that's even amazing about that is like as much as I love What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show is even better, I think.
I still need to watch that because that has Matt Berry as as a vampire.
It's like I think it helps because Jermaine Clement has such a big role behind the scenes in it. But it took what worked really well with the first film and just evolved and like developed upon that and just made something that's like probably one of the best sitcoms I've seen in the past 5 years. It's that good, I think.
Well, we were supposed to originally get a sequel to What We Do in the Shadows, which would follow the werewolves.
That wouldn't be too bad.
That would have been great actually, because Rhys Darby as the lead werewolf was fucking funny. Like it was.
Yeah, he's great.
It's such a weird film where it's basically all this supernatural shit happening, and it doesn't even stray away from like some of the more gruesome parts of it, but it's still just It's just a black comedy the whole way through.
It's like the decision for them to like not just make a supernatural black comedy, but also make one of the best like mockumentaries I've ever seen out of it. Like making it a mockumentary is what turns that film from being like really good into incredible for me. Because you just have like them doing all this shit, and then he just cuts like a piece to camera, like it's like you're watching a reality TV show.
I am somewhat hyped for his next film because I hope if it's done right, it's going to be a bit more closer to that style he was doing there in the black comedy. Like I like Jojo Rabbit, which is one of the ones that's basically after his move and stuff. It's a good film, but next Go Win seems like it's going to be a lot closer to that kind of like type of humor that we got with What We Do in the Shadows.
A single Taika Waititi film, so I cannot really contribute to this discussion.
You're too American for New Zealand Australian humor.
I've been putting up with it for the last 4 years.
Hell yeah! Surely you've at least watched Flight of the Conchords, though, Dominic.
I have not, but I know what it is.
You need to watch it. It's fucking funny.
You need to watch Flight of the Conchords. Yeah. It's like so good.
I mean, it is. It's weird because it's all completely based in New York, but it is just New Zealand humor the whole time. Like as is Ansari playing that racist food vendor who refuses to give them food because he thinks they're Australian, and then it just ends with them mocking Australians the whole time. It's fucking great episode.
Yeah,
but I feel like we can go on for longer, but we should probably cut it off here.
Yeah, we have been talking about movies for 2.5 hours nearly.
Yeah, 2.5 hours. Wow.
I mean, we talked about Hamish. You weren't there. We talked about Homer's Where the Whaler for 90 minutes.
Yes.
Whoa, that's amazing.
Most of that was me.
And I feel like I feel like we were like prepared to do that. This was like, we just went for it with Barbenheimer, and now we're.
But that's probably the most we've talked about a single album or a single piece of work compared to the length of that work is, because that's only like a bit over 30 minutes, that record.
Yeah.
And then we talked about it for 90, and this is 5 hours that we talked about in 2 hours.
Rick's fell asleep, and I think the first hour wasn't even up yet.
Yeah, I think the first 30 minutes wasn't even up yet.
Yeah.
Oh, well. This is why it's good to bring in a backup guest.
This is why it's getting posted live. All the silences, all the snoring, it's all gonna be there.
Good on your Tricks. Good on your Tricks. I hope she has a good night.
I is it really worth saying which film is better?
Yeah, I reckon it's fine to say that. I've said what my favorite scene is out of both of these films, and I will bite the bullet and say which one I enjoyed more, and just do a quick little summary of that. I think when it comes to watching Barbie, I thought it was a lot better than I expected it to be. I didn't expect it to be shit or anything like that. I expected it to be just a really mediocre film that didn't really do too much, but it was probably as best as a film on that subject was going to be. There were still some real problems, I thought, with some of the plot lines kind of going absolutely nowhere, or some of the moments just dragging on and stuff like that. I thought it was a good film. Oppenheimer, I thought, was just really brilliant visually, or audio wise. Like it had a lot more moments in there in which it was like a holy shit on the screen on there. And when I compare Barbie and Oppenheimer in what I wanted from there, in Barbie I felt like you could have cut out some moments and it would be the same. And in Oppenheimer I kind of wanted more moments. So Oppenheimer is the better film for me.
Hamish.
No, I have no idea how to separate these two. Like, I mean, they're pretty good, but like, I think I could personally, I'd like, or I think
I have your take. Yeah, I had your take there. I know you had a favorite.
Yeah, I'm saying Barbie for this because, like what Ritz covered, like I went into this with like mediocre expectations. Like I went into this thinking like I'd come out of it thinking like this wasn't a film made for me. Like it wasn't a film made for my target audience, and that's okay. And it's like, but I actually came out of that loving it a lot more than I ever thought I was going to. Like, yeah, literally everything positive that Rich said is literally what I thought about it. It just worked so well. And also bonus points, because I don't think we even brought them up properly. Like Ryan Gosling's performance in this was like
Phenomenal.
incredible, just phenomenal. Like how he dedicated himself to the role. It's like we need more people to method act, and we need more people to method act playing like goofballs instead of people being using it as an excuse to just be assholes and set to people.
Although I do want to mention one thing as well that we also forgot to mention about the Barbie movie, and it is a bit of a kind of like goof or whatever you call it. In this, it's what's the term for something when it contradicts itself in a story?
A plot hole?
Term for it. It's not really a plot hole. Plot hole is more of a couldn't they just do this, or that kind of leaves
like a retcon.
It's not really a retcon because retcon's changing that. It's like it's like a continuing break or something like that. Is usually what it is, or that. But they mention at the very start, there's no multiples of Alan. There's just one Alan. There's no multiples of that.
Right.
But then they also mention later when Alan's in the car and he's trying to leave Kenland. And it's a really good joke actually. I do like it about how Alan's a bit in the real world before and no one's noticed. The members of NSYNC. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that was a good joke. I love that.
It's a good joke, but it also does break that whole kind of there is no multiples of Alan.
I didn't even notice. It's interesting though.
I didn't even notice until you brought that up. Yeah, I did totally say that he's the only one. Maybe that's just trying to brush the members of NSYNC under the carpet.
It is still a funny joke. Again, if you think too much into it, you're thinking too much into a Barbie movie.
Helen Mirren's a good narrator.
I love the bit where it's like halfway through this thing when Margot Robbie's crying. And it's just like note to the, and she says like, but she's ugly and all that. And then Helen Mirren just interrupts and just says note to the director and note to the filmmakers. You do not cast Margot Robbie to make this point. It's like it just breaks the scene, but it's like it's
good that you mentioned that.
The whole audience is cackling.
It's good that you mentioned that because that was my partner's favorite scene as well.
Yeah.
Like especially
the Margot Robbie crying in the narrator.
that scene specifically
also,
reminded me
like-
of Royal Tenenbaums.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because the narrator also goes silent for a very long time and then chimes in with one line, and that like colors the entire scene.
Yeah. I need to rewatch Royal Tenenbaums. Saying that as a guy that literally did dress up as Richie Tenenbaum for a costume party a few weeks ago.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Did you win?
It looked shit. I mean, it wasn't like,
Oh,
it wasn't like for a competition or anything.
oh shit.
But yeah, also another thing I just want to quickly bring up from Barbie is like the depression Barbie ad halfway through. Where it's this really like perfect like recreation of like
Yes, the commercials and
of a
ads.
modern Barbie commercial. And
Fantastic.
It's just, yeah.
That reminded me of an episode of Community, the one where Jeff's in a coma, and he's playing out a GI Joe episode in his head.
It's so good.
So,
well, Dominic, you're the tiebreaker.
This is tough because I think they're both really good in different ways, and I know what movie is supposed to be on top, and I know, like, if I were to ask myself which one was number one, which one was number two, I know what the answer is, but I feel like it's also just kind of unfortunate that, we have to put one over the other because they're both very good. That being said, Oppenheimer, I think, is the better movie. But is that because I think it's legitimately better, or is it because I'm expected to think it's better? I don't know.
I think it's because it's legitimately better.
Because like Oppenheimer, there's no surprise there. I figured it was going to be pretty good, and I liked what I saw. Barbie, legitimately surprised, legitimately had like that whole emotional roller coaster of emotions and everything, and it was like it took me on a ride more than Oppenheimer did, but Oppenheimer's probably the better movie.
In a case, I went with both of them pretty much having not really much expectations, not being a real film nerd or anything like that. So going into them, I did have the expectations that Oppenheimer was going to be good, and I didn't watch this like you two did. You two both seem to have watched this on the same day. I think you did, Hamish, or you might have watched it the day after. You did it on the same day. I watched this like a week between each other because I watched Barbie at night, and I was trying to organize with friends going to watch Oppenheimer because my partner didn't want to see Oppenheimer. I wasn't going to drag her to a 3-hour movie she didn't want to watch because that's what's called torture. And so I finally just said, fuck it. I'm going to go watch it tomorrow by myself. It's a movie. I'm not going to be talking with other people anyway. Actually a pretty good day though. So I decided to head off early in the morning and I went to Marrickville and went to Resist Records, which, Hamish, if you ever come to Sydney, go to Resist Records if you want to pick up a shit ton of emo records. Great store.
I'll check it out next time I'm up.
Yeah. And then I was like, all right, now I'm going to go watch Oppenheimer on there. So I basically had not really much expectations into it, but I still think when we kind of compare this and going into expectations, Barbie was good, but all Oppenheimer had to do was really meet the expectations to beat it, because it was set up with really high expectations.
Yeah.
Because it's just Christopher Nolan. But I mean, sometimes you get these types of expectations and standards just because you constantly do stuff like this.
You're one of the most renowned filmmakers currently going.
Yeah.
Right
now. There's a reason why you get these perceptions, so there you go.
Well, for 2-1 vote, Trix is asleep, so we don't know. But for 2-1 vote,
you had to be awake to vote. 2-1, 2-1, baby.
Oppenheimer wins.
Can't believe we ended the Oppenheimer with an Oppenheimer.
Yeah. So this has been our 4th anniversary. Dear God, it's been 4 years.
I know we were the COVID podcast before COVID.
Yeah, we started the show pre-pandemic, and look where we are. Cameron X is on our show. We listened to his music early in the year.
Yay! Thanks for having me, guys.
Now we just need Tism on the show.
Oh God!
Oh hell yeah! Get Tism on.
Yeah. So Hamish, I've made sure to it's not so much work with Trix as it has with Dominic. The first ever albums we ever covered on here was Janelle Monáe's Dirty Computer, Hot Flash Heat Waves. What was the title?
Neapolitan.
Thank you. And I decided, and this was before they were on Spotify, so you had to do it on the YouTube link. I decided it would be Tism's Machiavelli and the Four Seasons.
What a great album to pick from for that.
To pick from my very first one, which over time, Dominic has become much a Tism fan.
Oh yes, they're fantastic.
Glad to hear it.
I think Tism.wanker.
Tism.wanker.com is the best one.
Yeah.
Especially the special edition. Like the full
I was gonna pick
Monty.
We're doing Horny Round for the Music League, and I was tempted for the Tism song that I picked to completely spoil what I'm picking here, Hamish, even though mine are fucking obvious.
Oh, I knew Tism was you immediately.
Yeah, I picked Dominic for the sake of this. I picked Everyone Else Has Had More Sex Than Me.
Of course.
Yeah, but I was also thinking of picking the worst head job. Describe the worst head job I've ever had. Fantastic. But I decided I'll go against that one because that one's a much longer song. Because the other song I picked was Ween's Let Me Lick Your Pussy.
Of course, that was you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a good one too.
Those balance each other out so well.
Yeah, I'm posting down that this has been my favorite thing. Has been the Music League was when someone said they were going to intentionally. I think it was Mix from the Discord. Said that she was, as a joke, going to put in songs intentionally to downvote. I was like, oh, it might have been to Eclipse this, said that she said that he would. That's when I decided, you know what, that's exactly how I should do this. And I'm so pissed. I'm so pissed out of last week because I held the record for the most amount of downvotes on a single song by picking We Will Look Back at You and Love You Forever's I Am Who I Am, Simon. I cannot give you more than that. Which I thought there was no way that could ever get beaten for the most amount of downvotes. Nope, someone had to pick Good Charlotte's War, and that beat it. They somehow just picked a song that was just so basic enough to beat the downvotes.
There were two Good Charlotte songs called War, weren't there? And
yeah, I think you picked the wrong one.
That happened to pick the wrong one.
Picked the wrong one.
Oh man.
So I had the downvote record. I had it. It's gone. What am I living for?
Now you've really got to fight to win that back now.
I gotta think of something worse than AI Peter Griffin.
Jeez.
We still have to nail it down, of course, but it's looking like our next interview will be with We Will Look Back at You and Love You Forever at some point later this year.
Yeah, that's gotta be the hype moment. Like honestly, Barbenheimer is gonna be number 2 moment of the year.
Now I want to ask Hamish, Cameron, do you have any questions for We Will Look Back at You and Love You Forever? If you have anything, you can say it now, and we'll ask it.
I just have no questions. Like, from hearing that one song in, like, the Music League, my question mainly was, like, why? That was my big question coming out of that. Like, but, like, yeah, if you want to ask them something, like, ask them, like, what their process of making music is like, if there is a process at all.
I was tempted, by the way, to pick another one for that 7-word one that we had, because I found a body at Penn Island is 7 words, and that's basically just a Pickle Rick sample for 2 minutes.
Oh jeez Louise. But yeah, it's like I feel like between my work and I can't remember that band's name, but it's like feels like we have very similar kind of vibes with the way we kind of screw around a bit. And
only they're not afraid to release their work commercially.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That's the key thing. Like I just like put my stuff out on like Bandcamp, put it out for free, and it's like, you know, just like me messing around with like things like Paul's Stretch and like bloody Aphex Twin's Sample Brain app, which is like pretty fun.
You need to download that virtual synth I sent you. That basically with the plugin that has so many instruments on it. It's fucking insane and it's all free. But and the actual big news, comparing with the scene there, is Bigger Boots finally announced a date for the new EP. Which I think he said he was going to try and get that out by the time the interview went live.
Yes.
and it's only been a couple months since. But we're finally
He's supposed to get the EP
announcement
out
of that.
by the time the show was happening, actually, but that was the same time, yeah.
Yeah. Well, by the time this episode gets released, it will be like released in a week.
This episode's getting released on 2 days from now.
2 days, nice.
2
Because
days, that's right. Because
that's the 15th.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
the actual anniversary, which is why I'm
Never
not
mind,
editing this.
It's on Well, it's on September 11th that it gets released. So mark the days. Never forget.
Well, I think that's been a show.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on, Cameron. I've never wanted to give a musician money more that refuses to take my money.
Thank you for having me, guys. It's been really nice to talk to you. It's been pretty fun.
Yeah, this has been Dissonant Waves. I'm Dominic. You can catch me online at DACICHOCKI on Twitter. Dominic Chikoki on YouTube, if you really must go there. I'm also on the Games My Mom Found podcast sometimes. In about 16 hours, we're going to record an episode about Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days. That's going to be fun. Trix's stuff will be in the description below, since she is not here, or at least cognizant to say it herself.
But dissonantwaves.space by our clock.
Yes.
That's basically the summary of it. Anyway, I've been Ritalin. You can catch me on my website, ritalinforkids.github.io. I don't upload anything anymore, but just pretend that I do. I also have a YouTube channel, which I don't upload anything to either. But when I do, you'll be the ones that had said, yeah, I was there. That'll be in the description below.
Hamish, take it away. Plug your shit.
Like my stuff, my music's current. Well, music in quotation marks. Like the stuff that I record is at cameronx.bandcamp.com, which is like, I currently have 2 EPs out. I'm slowly getting together a collection of like odds and ends, like demos and stuff like that. And then also, I think later in the year, I'm going to be releasing an album of field recordings. Well, not really field recordings. It's going to be like it's going to be.
Is it field recording?
It is one single field recording that I did for 1 hour and 15 minutes. So it's pretty much me like walking around the CBD in like the middle of the night. It's like I get like record like a bunch of shit around there on just like one big walk. You occasionally hear like people shouting weird shit, which is like that's the only kind of stuff you get from walking around Melbourne after dark. So if anyone's out there and actually listens to my music, that's something to look forward to.
Let's recover on this.
That once again at cameronx.bandcamp.com.
Fantastic. I could not be more excited or happier that is the outro that we have. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Have a great morning, evening, noon, night, afternoon. And good night, Trix.
Yeah, we got